Hello, everyone. Welcome to Experiential Realism. Today, I'm interviewing my very good friend, Matt Gray, from the Cheltenham UK Philosophers podcast, and I really recommend that you check that out. And I would just like to say that my friend has interviewed people like Matt Siegel, Bill Mensch, Stephen Wolfram, Ines Hippolito, Donald Hoffman, Mark Solms, Patrick Harpur, and many interesting people, many others, which they're too numerous and too great to mention here. Otherwise, I'd run out of time. Um, but yeah, I give you my very good friend, and finally, I'm having a recorded conversation with him, Matt Gray. How's it going, man? Finally.
Dude, the long-awaited conversation.
Yeah, that's right. The long-awaited conversation, and I'm already recording because I've just done a very quick intro. So, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, yeah,
Ready to
yeah,
go?
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can record as well, can't I? I didn't realize you could do that
yeah.
until
No, go for it. We'll share it
and
on both channels. Yep, yeah. Here we go.
that's really cool. I didn't realize that both participants could record. So every day's a school day, and particularly when with you, Arlindo.
I tell you what, I've just recommended your channel to everyone in the introduction because you've managed to interview so many interesting people like Matt Siegel, Stephen Wolfram, Ines Hippolito, Donald Hoffman. It's brilliant, and there's such a wealth of information on your channel. It's unbelievable. I mean, how you must be proud of everything that you've done so far because
It's
you mentioned
ki-
philosophy, science. I even forgot to mention a very great name, which is Mike Levin. Yeah, Mike
mm.
Levin is doing some amazing work in biology, isn't he?
It's a bit kind of mind-bending for me because as you know, I mean, we've known each other. We go back a good 2.5 years now, I think. I mean, something like around that.
Something like that.
So we,
Yeah,
we met on sort of like the Castrut Forum, obviously the Hermetica group. So we've been on a bit of a journey together, and that's such a cool thing. And with Stephen Wallard and all the guys over at the Hermetica
that's
and
right. Yeah,
in
talking
the
on
in
a
the
journey.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in the early days, we talked about doing some online things, and I did a couple of chats with Steve and some other members of the Hermetica and so on. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we could get people like Hoffman and so on and so forth? And I just emailed them, and he said, yeah, I,
Yeah,
and so really, as we mentioned earlier, that was one of the reasons why I really went hell for leather on this. And yeah, I'm extremely proud of myself.
yeah. No, that's
I'm
good.
kind of finally
So you should be.
in my life, I'm kind of finally doing something that, really truly means so. I mean, I've been lucky in my work and so on. I've done a lot of analytics and stuff for healthcare, so it does have a meaning and so on. I've always pursued something that gives, gives me some kind of meaning. But this is my favorite thing, talking to
Yeah,
people like yourself about
it's a different
philosophy.
kind of calling that you needed to pander to. So
Yeah,
there's the
yeah,
good work that
yeah,
you do,
yeah,
but at the same time, you also want to share your ideas and
yeah,
insights that you come across from other people, from great
yeah.
people, really, great philosophers and scientists.
Exactly. But I
I
think
get
the
it.
vision that we all had at the beginning was that we wanted to do that. And you're doing it now with experiential realism. You've had some fantastic guests and you're covering some amazing topics. And there seems to be a community forming around this as well. So you've got some guys in America and there's some, idealist related sort of conversations. It's fantastic what we've all accomplished. It
I try
really
to
is.
do my best at interviewing people. I've got no skills, no background in journalism or anything like that, or in
Same.
conducting interviews. I just do my best. And
Same as that. Same as
yeah,
that. When I first, you honestly, when I first interviewed Donald Hoffman, my heart was racing. I nearly froze a couple of times. I mean, when I see that, when I look back on it, I think, oh my God, that was terrifying.
yeah,
But
I can imagine.
I think that what carries us through, and from watching your stuff, what carries us through is our genuine interest and love for these subjects, and love for these characters and these people that are, putting forward transformational ideas, world-changing ideas.
Absolutely, yeah.
And and that's what I think we're trying to, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to, raise that profile and sort of it. I mean, the sort of space originally wanted to occupy was to get some of these ideas across to people that don't normally think about philosophy. you
No,
know. Uh,
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
know, um,
It's like through philosophy, we get to experience the magic of reality. And at the same time, there is a book by Richard Dawkins called The Magic of Reality. And in my days of physicalism, I
mm,
also had got to experience a different kind of magic as to how reality works. You know how we can come to understand things or come to some sort of understanding as to how it all works through cause and effect, through the cause and effect framework.
mm,
There's so much richness in a something like a flower, for example. It's not just the visual beauty. If you know the inner workings of the flower, it's
mm,
amazing. All that those intricacies. It's beautiful. And then at the same
mm,
time, if we cultivate the philosophical framework, we also come to also uncover more profound insights about reality. I
mm,
mean,
mm,
what is this all about, really?
mm.
And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think we can marry the two. Yeah,
I just want to pick up on that because I can relate so profoundly because I think we've been on similar journeys, you know.
yeah,
I mean, I was raised a Catholic, so obviously there was a kind of a mystical component, but it didn't seem very transcendental. It was very boring, you know, sitting in church facing the same direction, listening to some guy. It didn't feel spiritual really for me, and so, but then I went through but you're absolutely right. There was a magic in materialism that we're
yeah,
going to explain everything. I remember there was a period in the sort of mid to late 90s where it felt like the standard model of physics had been sort of reinforced. It looked like we were going to explain everything. And then we
yeah,
had DNA, we had the Human Genome Project. It's like, well, actually, everything, we've got the DNA, the instructions, even behavior can be explained by DNA. And you thought, oh my God, science is about to just conquer everything. And then, of course,
yeah,
I discovered philosophy.
yeah.
you know,
I
and
felt exactly the same. I thought that
yeah.
everything could be explained mechanistically, that
Mm,
science was about to uncover everything. It was like a
mm.
religion to me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And when I say science, it's materialistic science. I thought
Mm,
through materialism, we can explain even consciousness, and I was reading
mm,
Dennett
mm,
and
mm,
thinking, well, Dennett says that we are robots made of tiny little robots,
mm.
and that complexity somehow begets the magic of consciousness. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow, it's such an amazing world through the
Well, no,
materialistic lens.
hey, you've almost sold me back onto materialism. But but I can relate to where you were coming from. I felt that excitement as well. There was magic in that, and
Yeah,
there is magic in the idea that you can build a model that accounts for stuff, right? And it gives you a sense of kind of like empowerment and control. And I think that's linked in some way. There's a dotted line to that human exceptionalism that we're kind of somehow above everything else, and we can command our planet, we can command,
yeah,
nature, and it's sort of bound up with that. But the thing is, I think I've always been a kind of an idealist at heart,
right. Yes,
ever
yeah,
since childhood. Because ever since childhood, I think we've spoken before. Maybe we've spoken once or twice, haven't we? And I
yeah,
did have some sort of what I would describe as kind of transcendent experiences. It
yeah,
was to do with the mind. It wasn't to do with out there.
yeah.
I just realized there was another world in there.
So
And
you
anyway,
must
so
have felt like a niggling doubt, like a
well.
splinter in your mind, a bit like Neo. There's something wrong with reality. You
Mm.
can't quite put your finger on it, but something more profound, something deeper than what science can currently capture.
Yes, yeah.
And philosophy can potentially unlock all those things.
Yeah, follow the white rabbit. I mean, I wish I could be 1/10 as cool as the Matrix, but that's a great metaphor, But for me, I've just always thought that this was some kind. I thought everything was made of mind. I can't. I just don't. I've always had a kind of gut feeling that that's the case. I mean, who is it? Rupert Spira says that even during his childhood, he said that he felt that this was God's dream, you know.
Yeah, I
And I think that's
I
quite a
actually
good. Yeah, go
at
on.
college, I actually had a very good teacher at college. We used to talk about everything, and I think at one point he was trying to nudge me towards idealism, but I had no idea whatsoever
Mm,
what that was about because he
yeah.
said to me, have you heard of a theory where um, consciousness is regarded as one thing and we're all the same entity seen from different perspectives? That's how he put
Mm,
it, and I was
mm.
thinking, oh, that's a bit
Whoa.
weird, but
Yeah.
it could be plausible. But then I just forgot about it. I just
Mm,
went into materialism, and
yeah.
and I became around that time. I was beginning to become enamored with people like Richard Dawkins,
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
Christopher
Like,
Hitchens. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
And then
I still am to a degree, and I
yeah,
respect the rigor of their rationalist sort of approach to things. And I think that, that has served us to a certain degree, and it still can.
absolutely, yeah,
You can still approach there's certain areas of science, chemistry, biology, and so on that you can still approach with some of those mechanistic, and you can still make progress, I think.
yeah. I
Explain
feel
maybe
like from
explanatory, but
yeah,
you won't explain. Well, I just that's maybe for later on. I don't know, but I just don't think you can
it,
explain. You can't explain things mechanically. That's a
that's
brick
right.
wall,
Yeah,
and we've
yeah,
bounced back from that brick wall, and we've it's knocked some sense into mainstream science, and now you've got more and more and more
yeah,
physicists, biologists, chemists, people coming forward saying, you know what, I reckon some kind of panpsychist, maybe idealist don't think we're ever going to explain consciousness. I think by definition you possibly can't. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure
yeah.
because it's the thing, but
I
but
completely understand where you're coming from. I feel like, from my perspective as well, um, what David Chalmers said about people first being a materialist, and then the more they go into it, they end up uh, abandoning that and going into panpsychism, or they have some kind of materialistic panpsychism, and then the
mm,
deeper they go into it, they start to consider idealism, and it's like you go through that phase. The deeper you go into it, and you
yeah,
start to really to take metaphysics seriously. And I feel
yes,
like
yeah,
that's been my journey actually, because at
mm,
one point I thought, well, maybe some kind of panpsychism is true.
mm.
And then you have all these different types of panpsychism, and I, and I would still say, like for example, if I'm agreeing with someone like Federico Fagin,
Mm,
he describes himself as a quantum panpsychist. So I
mm,
would say, well, because I tend to agree with everything he said in that irreducible book, I would
mm.
also describe myself as a quantum panpsychist because I
Right,
think,
right.
yeah, yeah, he brings up many good ideas, and it makes sense how he describes his picture of reality to do with
Mm,
quantum states, and you can't know everything about quantum states unless
mm,
you're the quantum state itself, because it's irreducible. So
mm,
the only way you're going to acquire absolute information about the quantum state from its perspective, you have to be it. And right there, you,
mm,
you almost equate consciousness with the quantum state. Whereas if you're
mm,
looking at it from an outside perspective, you don't get the full picture, and hence
mm,
Holevo's theorem. You don't get the complete information of that quantum state unless you delve deep into it, and you go all the way down to that level to become the state itself, and it's
mm,
irreducible. And at the
mm.
same time, it's spread out because of the De Broglie wave function, isn't it? It's
It's
like
everything
the
and
smaller
it's
you get,
everything
the
and
bigger you
nothing.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, this is where I confess that I haven't read that book. I do like Federico Fagin. I've got his, what was the one before that? Silicon?
Oh,
Um,
Silicon, yeah.
Silicon.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
I've got,
halfway through Irreducible, and I really
yeah,
recommend it. It's
yeah.
phenomenal. It's
But
great. It really is great. It
I
talks
get a
about
bit,
informational space,
yeah.
how physical reality arises. So you get the consciousness is the substrate that gives rise to everything that you come to know about, and through
Mm,
that you get all these concepts, and it creates informational space, and then you get the
mm,
physical reality, which creates absolutely everything and every object that you can perceive, including your own body. So it's like your own body is within the field of consciousness, so
mm,
consciousness is
mm,
primary. So right there,
mm,
it's a
mm,
kind of idealism, even
mm.
though he calls it quantum panpsychism.
Panpsychism.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I tend to, now this is probably a mistake, but I tend to get a little bit suspicious when people start bringing quantum theory into their sort of speculative philosophy and metaphysics, because
yeah,
I don't think we need it, right?
yeah. We
I,
don't need it.
I don't think we need. I mean, so I quite like what sort of Mike Levin's position the other day, right?
Yeah,
So he's very cautious, right? And he said, look, I mean, he did in the end. He said, look, I think something like an idealism is probably the case, right?
yeah,
And but he's arrived at that after scratching his head and doing empirical studies, and and he's finding agency in all these lower and lower and lower level sort of systems, right? So you're finding agency inside logic algorithms, which just suggests that
absolutely.
agency is a fundamental, which dovetails beautifully with the whole idea of experiential realism, doesn't it? because it's
Yeah,
like the only thing that is real is the experiences of the experiences, which are these multitude of agents
that's why I like
that
the
are
term
everywhere.
so much, because
Yeah.
it doesn't get more parsimonious, and it doesn't get more epistemological than that, you know. And the
Yeah,
reality
yeah.
is the experience itself from our perspective, as far as we know, so we can ground ourselves in epistemological idealism, and then
Yes.
maybe we can make a kind of leap of faith to move on to ontological idealism.
Mm,
And I think this is why these people have to bring in scientific models. People like Federico Fagin and
mm,
Bernardo Kastrup, they have to say, well, we can measure quantum states up to a point, and if everyone can agree that there is a quantum reality, then we can all agree.
mm,
Then I can make the assumption, you know, at least one leap of faith that
mm,
consciousness can equate with the quantum states, the quantum realm.
mm.
You know, qualia can equate with quantum states, and there it's almost
Or
like
maybe,
every theory has to make.
there are quantum states that can be seen as representations of, or there are.
That's right.
So,
That's
yeah,
right. It's almost like
because
they have to, every
it's.
theory has to make an assumption in order to be accepted by everyone, and then
Mm,
we can all go from there.
yeah,
They can't help but look at models.
but is there a tendency among sort of idealist, leaning thinkers and scientists to look to their science to kind of try and support it and so on and so forth? For me, you don't need it, right? I don't think that you can ever achieve metaphysical certainty, right?
Yeah,
For starters, I don't think that's possible.
yeah,
Right. But I think you could, but then you look at you say if you say the cosmos is made of bicycles, right? That's absurd, right? So there
yeah,
is a scale. It's like good and bad art. It isn't a black and white thing. There's some kind of scale, right? Um, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? But my
yeah,
point is, I can't be certain about it, but that's where a little bit of intuition, a bit of experience comes in as well, and maybe psychedelic experiences or meditation that are sort of, where you're removed from your kind of planetary identity temporarily. I know you've had some experiences. So certainly talk to guests that know about this
yeah,
stuff. And,
yeah,
so I think that for me, idealism is a mixture of sort of reason where you basically eliminate all of the other ontologies because
yeah,
they're found wanting.
yeah.
Then you're left with this. And it's like, and it's kind of the opposite of what we're meant to be thinking, because
Yeah.
as mammalian survivors on planet Earth, we,
That's right.
we need to think we're in a geometric 3D, 4D space-time continuum to be able to do our business with medium-sized objects, right? And so
Absolutely.
it's,
Yeah.
it's it's kind of like the opposite of what we're meant to, which is why it's so hard for people to wrap their heads around it. It just seems like total woo to most people, doesn't it? But for
It
me,
does.
it's
Yeah.
just really deep down in my heart, it's always seemed like the most obvious position there
Yeah.
is.
And that's
Yeah,
the thing. I mean, people like, for example, people like Bernardo Kastrup, who have a scientific background, he's worked at CERN, he's a computer
yeah,
scientist.
and I love
It,
that, and I love that. It lends
it
credibility to the cause in a way, doesn't it? It does.
that's right.
Yeah.
So people like that, they can only uh, make a philosophical argument as to why idealism is more plausible, or why idealism should be the default mode position than
Mm,
materialism. And then he will explain his reasons as to why he thinks idealism is more parsimonious than
mm,
physicalism.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but you can't say with absolute certainty that idealism is the be all and end all, especially not analytic idealism. But he can
mm,
only formulate a theory for others to accept or reject. But I
yeah,
think he makes a very convincing argument that materialism is untenable. Materialism, physicalism, and idealism should be the default mode, because, after all, you can
mm,
only confirm that things exist
yes.
through consciousness. You know.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop you doing naturalistic science. It doesn't stop you
That's
doing it,
right.
but it might open up the nature of some of those experiments. I mean, for example, this is probably really left field for some people, but Rupert Sheldrake. I know that you've followed his work and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, he faces total rejection
Yes,
from
it does. Yeah.
from most of his sort of scientific community, and they won't even look at the data when he's got statistically significant data that
Yeah.
shows things like dogs, the
Yeah.
psychic
I
dogs
think it's
and
called scopesthesia, isn't it?
scopesthesia, the
People
feelings
feel
of,
like they're being observed.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's got this extramission theory of vision as opposed to
Yes,
the
yes,
expected
yeah.
intromission. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and again, there's now stuff going on in neuroscience. So one of my recent guests, Nicholas Hinrich, talking about this thing like hyperscanning, which is where you can basically look at the neural behaviors across multiple brains, and
yeah,
they're saying that there are these kind of meta architectures, meta neural sort of architectures that influence our behavior. We don't even fucking know. Excuse my language. We
yeah.
don't even. So
No,
I,
absolutely.
I should say it is Friday. I have a hard week at work. I am drinking beer and because I'm with an old friend, and
No
I'm
problem.
gonna enjoy this, and it might loosen the tongue a little bit. But I mean, so we're now science is peeling back certain metaphysical layers, but
That's right.
it's only doing that because we're in this kind of like sort of materialist sort of box. We really are, and it
Yeah,
affects our political thinking, our moral thinking, the way we look at ourselves, and everything. And Kastrup talks about this extensively, and I love that
yeah,
side of it. I love the
yeah,
social implications of idealism.
yeah,
It makes us nicer people, I think. I really, I
yeah.
don't know.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd like to think so, obviously, but
I definitely want to look more into hyperscanning. It sounds really interesting.
mm,
And
yeah,
it could support the theory that of metacognition that Castrop tends to talk about. Like the more complex the brains reflect a type of metacognition where mind is going. Mind is self-reflective, isn't it? And then through human
mm.
beings, it tends to become metacognitive. Although I think people tend to be intermittently metacognitive. I don't think they're metacognitive
Mm.
the whole time. They have their ups and downs, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's a rare treat for me, I'd say, to be
Yeah.
medical. But no, no, it's fascinating. So could I just unpack that a little bit? So do you think there are experiencing entities out there with kind of just much sort of narrower sort of spectrums, if you like? So maybe they're only experiencing red or saltiness or, but they're still, but really ultimately we're swimming, we're just, we're minds sloshing around in a mental sort of ocean, aren't we? Which obviously
That's right.
seems to have certain regularities about how it expresses or ingresses, as even Mike Levin say he owns his own laboratory and he's
Yeah.
using words like ingress from platonic space into physical. I mean, it's
I
like,
love that.
what the fuck's going on? I mean,
Yeah.
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 I didn't think
Yeah.
that in my lifetime I'd see this, and also scientific. Well, fairly tight-looking scientific documentation of psychic ability in those autistic kids, and
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that,
Absolutely.
Arlindo? Are we going through an awakening of some sort, or am I just being a hippie?
No, no, I think you're making very good points. I think, right, that when he brings up the Platonic realm, he's really got a good point there. I
Mm,
really do think that you can be a monistic idealist, right? It's a monism, but you can get dual or even trialistic aspects to reality, where you can have, for example, look, Plato spoke of three worlds, didn't he? He spoke of the mental, he spoke of the physical, and then he spoke of the Platonic realm, the forms of mathematics and all of that. And I feel like perhaps that can all exist within a substrate which is phenomenal consciousness, which is the ground of all being, which which if you strip it of all contents, of all concepts, it's far divorced from a human mind, because a human mind is already immersed
mm,
in concepts, which is also
mm,
different from the mind of a lion or the mind of a bee. And I think I would also um, rule out. No, actually, I wouldn't rule out. I think we can't be too hasty, and this is one of the things that I disagree with Bernardo Kastrup about. But then again, I think he did endorse an article about metacognition, which saying
mm.
that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the
I've
mind
seen
allows
him.
to be
I think
metacognitive.
he's wobbled on the metacognition of Mal, hasn't he?
That's right, because the way I see it is, I think it's plausible for us
Mm,
to have come from a mind at large, which is beyond metacognitive, which is absolutely omniscient. It's possible for us to come from a type of source, a type of absolute, which is pluripotent, and in that state we're aware of that pluripotency, And when
Pluripotent, that's a new word. I
yeah,
like that.
and the thing is, when we're born, because when we're born, we identify with something simplistic like a zygote, and then
Mm,
that zygote, it's almost like we exclude, we dissociate, and we exclude everything else to become a very simple mind like a
mm,
zygote. And the zygote can only know what it knows based on its own existence,
mm,
so it copies itself. And the more
mm,
we grow, it's almost like we start from zero. We start from that tabula rasa. Although
mm,
Carl Jung would say it's not exactly a tabula rasa because
mm,
of
mm,
archetypes and that. There's archetypes behind nature. That's
mm,
also plausible. I think there's some truth to that. But the tabula rasa would be you start from that zygote as soon as the moment of conception, and then you grow
mm,
inside your mother's womb, and then you grow throughout your life, and your brain develops more and more connections, and then you start to develop more and more metacognition. But that metacognition is only a reflection of what was already potential in that pleroma, in that mind at large.
mm,
So,
mm,
so, so
mm,
if your brain becomes affected and you suffer from dementia, for example, if something
mm,
happens to your brain, suffer dementia, you suffer some kind of brain defect, and it affects your cognition as a human being. When you are about to die, and those and the flawed dissociation, the flawed barrier between you and the rest of nature is
mm,
compromised, but you're on death's door and you're about to
mm,
lose your human ego and you start to
mm,
merge with the mind at large. I think that demented state, or that state where you're hindered, where you're blinkered, starts to
mm,
dissolve, and that could explain things like terminal lucidity, where people start to,
mm.
they get a kind of
Well,
lucidity right
yeah,
before they
yeah.
die. You know,
Yeah. And also, there's a dotted line from this to some of Kastrup's research around psychedelics, where brain activity actually goes down, where the
yeah,
people having the most profound, complex experience of their lives,
yeah,
and the brain's not doing anything, right? So again, it suggests that the more dissociated we become, the deeper and sort of more
yeah.
meaningful,
The
perhaps, our
more
conscious
experiences
experience.
you get,
Yeah, yeah, and I know you've talked a lot about. I'd love to ask you if you don't mind to talk a bit more about your sort of lucid dreaming experiences because I've had these kind of like throughout. I don't get them much these days, but I used to get them, and they were just some of the most enjoyable experiences of my life.
yeah, they
When
are
you
brilliant.
realize that and it's weird. This mad kind of like it sort of has some degree of respect for physics, but not totally. It's like I couldn't walk through a wall, but I could sort of do a run up and fly. And,
Yeah,
so it's weird how the constraints are dissolved to some degree, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, because I think that things like lucid dreaming, meditations, where you literally dissolve the identity, take away,
absolutely.
take away Matt. And because he's a pain in the ass, right? And he gets in the way of progress, right? But take him away for a while because he's.
Yeah,
And so, and I do try to do that, not religiously, but I do have some good experiences with it. I've had some weird ones where I've been sat in the garden and
yeah,
meditated, and I don't know, maybe I've not thought for perhaps 2 or 3 minutes, maybe,
yeah,
before the little nibbling thing comes in, like all the shopping list or whatever it is.
yeah.
And but I've emerged from those experiences. There's been loads of animals around me, birds and
Right.
sort of insects
Wow.
and things like that, and just sort of sat there and.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do wonder sometimes whether there's such a profound interconnection between us and nature, and we've just kind of forgotten that, you
I,
know.
I really do think so.
Mm.
Nature isn't just connected in terms of cause and effect and
Dude, one sec.
particles affect other particles. Yeah.
I'm just gonna grab a beer. Sorry, one
No,
sec.
go for it. No problem.
Yeah, yeah. All this talking is making me thirsty.
Yeah, yeah. I always have a drink with me every time I do these talks. You know,
Here we are.
so I
Sorry.
have a bottle of water with me here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think nature is deeply, reality itself is deeply interconnected within consciousness,
Mm.
and that includes meaning as well. And through lucid dreaming and these altered states of consciousness, you come to realize that the mind can be a complex jungle, and it can be weird to a human being. It's like, whoa, what is this? I
Yeah.
completely see where you're coming from with lucid dreaming. And the thing is, when I was a kid, like from a very early age, I used to have lucid dreams, but I didn't know. They were called
Mm.
lucid dreaming. So,
Yeah.
and in my limited vocabulary, I tended to try to explain to my mum, it's the dreams that feel real. That's as much as I could say. It's the dreams that feel
Yeah.
real. And
Yeah.
my mum would be confused. And now looking back, it's like, well, that was a bit of a silly thing to say because after all
Well,
dreams feel real, especially when you don't have lucidity. If you think you're not dreaming, if you're
mm.
involved in some kind of plot, you will believe anything. Even the illogical seems like it makes
Yeah.
sense in a dream.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you add lucidity, when you add the lucid component to it, then you start to see the anomalies because now
Mm.
you have the real world, as it were, the
Yeah.
waking world, as a kind of benchmark for assessing what's going on around you in the
Yeah.
oniric dream world.
Can I
And
just say what, but just briefly while it's in my head, it's almost like the lucid dream is a bridge between the subconscious and the conscious mind, isn't it? Because exactly as you say, it's when I've lucid dreamed in the past, it's when I've noticed logical inconsistencies or physics problems. It's those things that have triggered me, and I said, ah, it's a dream, right?
that's
But
right, yeah,
I've had ones where even after that realization, obviously that is essentially what lucid dreaming is, isn't it? When you realize you're in a dream and you can continue on. And
yeah.
I've argued with the other dream characters and said this is a
So
dream. They're
have
like,
I.
how dare you? One of them said to me, "How dare you say
Yeah,
I'm not real?"
yeah, yeah.
But so for me, so I think that it's if you can master. I mean, I no, I mean, I'm not a master of this stuff, no expert as usual. My normal caveat,
I take it
but
as it goes, and I've
yeah, but you seem to have you've done a lot and you still do it now, don't you?
I try to do it. I'm going through a very dry period, and I want to get back to lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing it for years, and I can say that it feels like we have different types of dreaming. It's all dreaming, and the word dreaming involves perception anyway. And I love that quote from Stephen LaBerge when he says, "Dreaming is perception unconstrained by sensory input, and perception is dreaming constrained by sensory input." So even
Love
right
that.
now, we are dreaming, but we have certain rules about the physical world. It
Yes.
constricts us, and
Yeah.
we have to see it a certain way. So
Yeah.
throughout the years, um, I experimented with lucid dreaming and I began to see that uh, dream characters can differ. For example, some can seem like NPCs, others can seem to have a lot more sentience or a semblance of sentience.
Mm.
Right? I do think that a lot that we experience in the waking world, we take it into our own private worlds when we dream in our sleep and we recreate it and we project it because it's
Mm.
almost like a projection. So we share this projection of the waking world in the idealistic framework. And when we dream, we create our own projections. But
Mm.
sometimes I've had experiences where my own projection seems to be interrupted by something else. And
Wow.
sometimes I've had experiences where certain dream characters seem like mannequins devoid of life, right?
Yes,
And
yes, 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 yes. I can totally relate to this. Just really briefly, while I remember, some
yeah,
of the characters in my lucid dreams, they were made up of
yeah,
other people's faces, right? So there would be a character that would have my mother's eyes, it would have my friend Paul's jaw or something, and my girlfriend's hair, and I'd say, you're not real, you're constructed, you know.
yeah.
There was one time I lifted up a pillow. Right, and it had like a floral design on one side, and I said to everyone in the room, I said, "Right, you guys, this isn't real. Watch this. When I turn this pillow over, what do you think will happen?" And they said, "Oh, there will just be a pattern there." And I said, "No, no, 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 no." And I turned it over. It was totally blank. It was just like a void, and then it slowly filled out with this strange paisley pattern. Right, and then I woke up. I thought, it was weird. It was like
Yeah,
it used to feel like there was some kind of I was trying to overcome the people around me. I was trying to convince them of something, or I was trying to. There was some narrative that I wasn't happy with that I was wrestling with. So I mean,
yeah,
probably I should probably be telling this to a psychiatrist or something. Dude, send me an invoice, yeah,
yeah,
but but no, it's fascinating stuff, and it's so strange
yeah,
to know. And it was this kind of thing when I was younger. I used to go into these kind of meditative trances where they were kind of like pastel clouds and things, and there was no end to it, but it felt contained, and it was just strange stuff. And
yeah,
it showed me at an early age that the physical reality is the beginning. It's the
yeah.
beginning of the
It's
stuff.
almost like we get more freedom in that state, in the dream state. And I've one of
Less
the
prejudiced,
experiences.
aren't we? We're less prejudiced, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the experiences I had in the hypnagogic state, um, that I was telling Scott about, was seeing the image of a wardrobe in front of me, and knowing what that thing is, and I am lucid in this hypnagogic imagery. I'm looking at the wardrobe, but I'm aware I'm in bed, but I'm seeing this wardrobe
Mm.
very clearly. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a wardrobe. I can see it so clear. It looks so real. But then all of a sudden, I seemed to flip a switch in my brain where I went to another state where I was looking at the wardrobe, and I didn't know what the object was. It was just a fluid
Right.
shape. And I was like, oh, but then I had a vague sensation, like it's on the tip of your tongue, that kind of feeling, I think they called it lethologica. It's like a phenomenon where it's on the tip of your tongue. You sort of
Mm.
remember something. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, hang on
Yeah.
a minute. I had a concept. I had an identity for this form that I'm observing
Mm.
right now. What was it? And then I
Yeah.
flipped the switch back to the state where I could understand. And then I could
Mm.
flip it back to not knowing what that is. So it's almost
Mm.
like I had the freedom to know what the object was and not know. And
That's fascinating.
yeah,
That reminds me of it. It's a bit like fishing for old memories or fishing for dreams.
that's
And
right. Yeah,
sometimes you get a hook and and then it's like, oh, and
that's right.
sometimes I remember dreams from years ago.
Yeah,
And then of course I get into the kind of like, well, hang on, have I just you know, am I just modeling that now? Is that my current interpretation of what happened to me?
yeah,
And it's tricky stuff. And then I get thinking about, well, what is the brain? And because obviously, even if we accept that consciousness is fundamental, there's a
yeah.
brain thing, and we still have to a degree, if this is how consciousness is manifesting, it's clearly it's if you cause brain damage in someone, it will affect their memories and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
consciousness
Yeah.
isn't those things. Consciousness isn't memory. It's not intelligence. It's
No.
not. It's not even qualia, is it? It
Yeah.
is. Well, I don't know. It's that which experiences, right? I mean, sorry. I'm sort of like bringing it back to the sort of experiential realism thing, and I think that it's so beautifully pragmatic.
Yeah.
That's what I really like about it. And I think that in some sense, because we both traced our sort of intellectual heritage back to materialist Dawkins. These guys are rigorous thinkers, right? So we've cut
Yeah.
our teeth. We've
They
cut
are
our teeth.
needed.
We've cut our teeth on some pretty hard science, right? And
Yeah.
I suspect we were probably both quite, real zealots about it. I used to get into arguments with Christians and born agains and anyone with any
So did
degree of
I.
magic. And I don't, and so, but we've been through that, and we've done the math, and we're continuing to do the math and respect the emerging research and so on and so forth. And yet we're still saying, well, no, idealism looks to be the smartest option. And we're
Yeah.
not alone. We're not alone in that. We've got some of the best cutting edge scientists in the world now saying that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
And so
we have to be careful with the materialists who are politically motivated, and they will
well, yeah.
obfuscate certain observations that we can make. For example,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, briefly, I think sometimes I do that as well.
yeah.
Because there's this tendency of humans to sort of camp themselves and to become entrenched, and I don't want to be that. I don't want to be dogmatic about idealism. That's why I like what Mike Levin said the other day. He said, look, it's one of those things. It's like I can't really operationalize it, but I do believe it. But
Yeah.
I think in a way, I think he was holding back because I think he is operationalizing it because I think the types of experiments that
Yeah.
he is doing, there's no way a materialist
Yeah.
scientist would ever think about doing some of the things that Mike Levin's doing. So I think that metaphysics is guiding his science, and I
No,
think
absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that you got him to say that is leaning more towards idealism.
Mm,
Where would he place his bets on
mm,
idealism or materialism or any other type of metaphysics? And he said, well, it would have to be idealism. And
yeah,
and the
yeah.
thing is, um, you at least are honest with yourself and other people about where you stand and how much you are sure about, your own worldview and what you think about other people and other
Mm,
ideas and to a degree, you're not saying I'm absolutely sure about the nature of reality. You're not saying that, which is a good thing. But when you take into consideration people like Matt Dillahunty, for example. He's on the line, the show The Line, which is a bit like the atheist experience, and he tends to, you know, He tends to say things like, well, we've absolutely ruled out the existence of a soul and consciousness doesn't exist and there's no such thing as qualia. And because, by the
Well,
way, I can give you an example. Phineas Gage, who had a metal rod go through one of his brain hemispheres, it changed his personality completely. But then if you pay attention to that really closely, you realize that doesn't rule out the existence of
mm,
consciousness, and it doesn't rule out the existence of a soul or some kind of self, some kind of self-awareness. Because
mm,
in the case of Phineas Gage, consciousness never went away. All that
mm,
happened was because the thing is, it changed his personality in the sense that his brain was affected. So if you affect your brain, you're obviously going to see the world in a different way. And in
mm.
turn, it's going to make you feel differently about the world. And you're
Yes,
going to, in
yes,
turn, respond differently to that world, to that
yes,
sensory input. But
yes.
his own satiety, let's say, his
Mm.
own consciousness never went away.
Um, yeah, it doesn't say anything about the substrate. It just, yeah, I don't see how that's relevant to the,
Yeah.
the debate, to be
But
honest.
you see, they try to make it
Um,
relevant somehow
Yeah, I
to
mean, look, you've got these on the converse. Let's look for some sort of converse scientific evidence about this stuff, right? And what are they called? Hydroencephalitis, where there's people who've been living for years, ordinary lives, jobs, families, kids, right? They get a headache one day, turn up at the clinic, they do a brain scan, and they find out that they've only got brain material, sort of, the wet stuff, just on the inside of their skull, and the rest of it's water.
yeah,
Right, so they lack some of the key functional cerebral processes, the frontal lobes, all this kind of stuff. It's just
yeah,
fucking missing, right? But these
yeah.
guys are carrying on. So I mean, for me, that just defeats brain support to mind. There's so much evidence. You yourself have had some brilliant guests talking about near-death experiences.
Oh yeah,
Again, these are people doing science, right?
yeah,
Yeah, they're not sitting around seeing kumbaya. They're doing science, they're doing the math, and we've got endless amounts of empirically sourced, investigated, tightly reasoned cases of people
yeah.
saying, giving you all kinds of information, experiences they've had when their brain's not working, their heart's not working, they're technically dead by any human measure, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I've had some pushback on this. People say, oh, well, it's a near death, it wasn't actual death.
yeah,
Oh, well, okay, but their brain's not functioning. There's no
yeah.
oxygen to the brain for long periods of time, and they're
Yeah.
coming back and saying that they've floated into other rooms. I mean, I'm not
That's
saying
right.
that I'm not even saying that the experiences that they've had are necessarily kind of objective or provable or anything like that. But the fact is, they were conscious, just
Yeah,
as those people on heavy psychedelic doses are
absolutely.
having the most deep, conscious, profound experiences they've ever had, and their brain's not doing anything.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know that there's more science to do on this stuff, but you can't ignore.
You can't ignore.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's what materialist scientists do. They're the religious ones because they're like, oh, hang on, this doesn't fit our sacred truth, that everything's made of
yeah,
little marbles that
and that's
work.
where they become dogmatic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, everything's made of little marbles that work clockwork, and physics has known that this isn't the case for hundreds of years. It's
yeah.
actually it's in the humanities, isn't it? In the social sciences, they're the ones that need to catch up.
That's
You know.
right. Yeah, they absolutely do. And I think some people and they try to besmirch people who try to think outside the box and try to
Yeah.
entertain these other claims that maybe it's possible that we survive physical death and maybe it's possible that people who have come near death have actually glimpsed something beyond, like some other realm. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually rate one of the people that was on my show, Dr. Morse. Um, I can't remember his first name now, but yeah, he's a pediatrician, and he was looking at children and cases of children who nearly died and what the children were saying, and he said I particularly focused on children because they are not biased by any cultural influences, any religion, and still they say things like.
Mm.
I was going towards this light, and I had some shiny friends.
Yeah,
They wouldn't say, oh, they were angels or they were spirit
yeah.
guides. They
They've
would
got
say
no
just
agenda. They've got
nothing.
no agenda. They've got no belief system that they're trying to reinforce.
That's
They,
right.
I
And then,
love that.
oh,
That's
at
yeah.
times they would say, "Oh, I saw," because they might have heard their parents say, "Oh, Nanny and Granddad, they passed away. They're in heaven now." At a minimum, they would say things like, "And then I saw Nanny and Granddad in heaven, and he was so great. It's so beautiful." Things like
Mm.
that, which
Yeah,
makes it
yeah.
even more believable, and it's
Mm.
untainted, unbiased by anything.
Yeah.
With the least preconceptions
Mm.
made,
Yeah.
possible that you can get from a human being because they're such young minds, and still
Mm.
you find patterns, you find universal observations within those NDEs,
Mm.
and you
Yeah.
compare them to what adults are saying, and the adults who have had NDEs, they're saying exactly the same thing but using
Mm.
different language,
Yeah.
caked in,
Grown-up language.
yeah,
Yeah.
grown up language, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trying to
that's
trying to
right.
look cool, you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
But no, that's fascinating. And I mean, we put a lot of stock in human experience, right? And
yeah,
why stop at NDEs and psychedelic experiences? And it's interesting. Again, I was thinking there, sort of philosophy, just doing some on the fly philosophy, which is what it's all about, really, is
yeah,
that your experiential realism insists upon the sort of ontic kind of substantiality of actual just experience. That is reality, right? And I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
That's actually yours and Stephen's exchanges on this stuff. It's
yeah,
influenced me.
yeah,
I like the pragmatism of it,
yeah,
right? I mean, obviously there's pushback from various quarters.
yeah.
Consciousness is just an epiphenomenon, blah blah blah. Linton's got some arguments, and we
That's
put
right.
so much stock in this, and but for me, it's pragmatic and
Yeah,
it's honest. And what? Oh shit! I've
yeah.
forgotten my original
I
point.
could understand Linton's
Um,
pushback on the ontological side. I mean,
hmm.
I because Linton
Yeah,
would
because it's
say,
it's probably best for us to say it's probably true, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Rather
probably true.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah,
don't know. I
yeah,
don't know. I'd be
yeah,
curious about what you're
yeah.
prepared to
So,
say.
so epistemologically speaking, all we can be sure about is our unconsciousness. All we can be sure about is mentation.
Yeah.
Ontologically speaking, we have to make a kind of leap of faith,
Mm,
and we have to say, well, we have absolutely no reason to believe absolutely no reason to believe that there is something outside of mind. There's some
mm.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
Kantian noumenon that gives rise to the phenomenal world of appearances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though it's plausible, it seems like a good idea. We can't make that leap of faith. It's almost like an extra leap of faith that you have to
Mm,
make.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, it's woo. It's fucking woo. I mean,
yeah,
Mike Levin said the other day, he said, look, in order to get out of bed in the morning, we have to, do all these ion channel stuff. We have to make all of these cell
yeah,
membranes move and cooperate. And so we're going from an abstract idea in mental space, like, oh God, I need a job, or, I've got something to do, or, and that's making our bodies move. And I actually said to him, I said, that's basically telekinesis.
telekinesis. Yeah,
He said that is basically telekinesis, right?
yeah,
So, it kind of reminds me of people like sort of Derrida writing books about how there's no meaning in language, materialism is just a dog chasing its tail, right?
yeah,
It will never find the answers that it seeks, and I think that there's this fundamental crisis really there, to be
yeah.
honest. I mean, we joke and laugh about it, but actually it's freaking serious because it
It really is.
changes the
Yeah,
way it changes the way people think about themselves.
yeah,
And I think you can look at things like the rise of materialism as associated with kind of maybe the industrial age, the mechanization of things, the success of science delivering steam and electricity and lighting. And then you go into something like the First World War. I know this is, difficult territory, but then really, men being chewed up by machinery, and it's almost like a symbol of the inferiority, the submission
yeah,
of consciousness
yeah,
to to I don't know, to something that isn't cool, right?
yeah.
And so
Horrible
I think
imagery, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, Kastrup's you've talked about this, Wallard's talked about, it's not good for the soul, you know.
Definitely not.
Materialism is not good for the fucking soul.
Yeah,
It reduces us to clockwork, deterministic machines. We're getting to the
yeah,
some people genuinely believe now. I mean, there's friends of mine that have gone this far. They
yeah,
don't they don't even think that they're real anymore. I mean,
yeah,
and it's interesting because I think that to some degree that the where you get to with materialism actually almost comes full circle and ends up in some
yeah,
kind of. You look at people like Anil Seth, right? He's
yeah,
notoriously materialistic neuroscientist,
yeah.
and he's on. He's on record as saying that our experience of the world is just a controlled hallucination,
That's
right?
right.
So he's in the same ballpark as probably not coincidentally as people like Hoffman who are
Yeah,
saying this is a world of representations, a la
right.
Schopenhauer, and so wherever you go, you end up with the realization that we're dealing with representation and negotiated position, right?
That's right.
When it comes to the world. You've got Philippe who goes ultra skeptic and says, "Well, we don't know." I mean, I
Yeah,
enjoy some of those. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes it kind of troubles me a little bit. I think it's kind of wasteful. I think that,
yeah.
you know,
He kept bringing up terms like petitio principii and ignoratio
yeah,
elenchi.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
the guy is extremely smart, very well
he
read.
is. He is.
He
He
said that
definitely is.
he said that Whitehead, he understands Whitehead straight away, and I'm like, fricking hell, and he
Yeah,
is a genius. And I think there's something kind of fairly watertight about what he's saying, but I don't know how
yeah,
relevant it is and how useful it
yeah.
is.
I was trying to get across to him that I'm not necessarily ruling out solipsism. I'm just
Mm.
saying it's unfalsifiable. But he kept insisting
Yeah,
on
yeah.
solipsism being almost like like a default position. And when I asked him, how sure are you that how was it? How sure are you that other minds don't exist? It was something like that. And he
Yeah.
said, well, I'm 0% sure, 0% confident. Because I said to him that there are degrees of confidence that you can have where you go from uh, from absolute doubt to
Mm. Yeah.
absolute certainty.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said to him, look, in propositional logic, knowledge is a subset of belief, so you can only have degrees of confidence. And he said, well, I'm not sure that other minds exist. I have 0% confidence. And I said to him, hold on a minute, because
Mm.
you're interacting with me right now. We're having a conversation. So I think at least you should say 50%
Yeah,
confidence.
yeah, but no, but the thing is, he does have an answer for that. Maybe he'll watch this, and he
Yeah,
does it. He says no, it's still worth engaging with these constituents of my own mind
yeah.
for convenience, right?
But then
But
again, there is a degree of entertaining the possibility that solipsism is false because we still have to. So he uses what is it, the moral argument that
mm,
just in case. So really, he's not sure. So he can't say that.
I like Pascal's wager. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
They might exist, so I may as well be nice to them.
yeah, yeah,
But it's just for me, it's kind of. I'm glad we're having a laugh about this because it can come across as a bit rude as well. And funnily enough, Linton picked him up and said, "Look, you've been talking about he's got a new girlfriend, and it's like, how's she going to feel about the fact that you're
yeah,
0%, you're 0% sure that she really exists?"
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. I mean, it doesn't
Good.
work.
So I think he would probably describe himself as like a pragmatic solipsist. He'd say, "Look, I'm pretty convinced there's a good chance you don't exist," or something like that. But I'm
Yeah.
just going to put up with you. I'm going to put up with these
Well,
things.
I was trying to say to him, look, uh, w
I can't. I
forget
just, yeah.
solipsism because it's unfalsifiable. But in order to circumvent the problem of solipsism, we use a theory of mind, which is the theory of mind that we all cultivate since we're infants.
Mm,
We
yeah.
observe other people, we recognize the similar behaviors in other people. We see mum and dad, and right there we begin to develop a theory of mind, which says that it's not just we that exist; other minds also exist. So we
Yes.
we go
Yes.
from that oceanic feeling that babies tend to have, that oceanic perspective. I'm the world. There's only me and the entire
Mm,
world. To which is
mm,
almost solipsistic if you think about it. To
mm.
a view where you start to realize, hold on a minute, I'm a participant in a much wider world full of other
Mm.
people who also seem like you know like they're also aware, other minds, other human
Mm.
beings, other people, and they
Mm.
also have heads and arms like I do. And when I talk to them, they respond in similar ways that I respond back to them. So right
Mm.
there you start to form a theory of mind, and it's only a theory, but it's a theory. It's a well-founded theory, uh, that you
I
can't
like that.
prove.
Just want to
Yeah,
pick something up there because that's quite interesting because it can be some confusion around this. Like when you say theory of mind, that's actually something we all carry on board with us. We have a
yeah,
theory and we have a self model, right? But
that's
then
right.
not to be confused with theories of mind, as in
That's
psychoanalysis.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so, so this theory of mind is specifically about how we view ourselves in relation to the rest of the world, and how
Mm.
we can derive the possibility that a plurality of minds is the case. So, not to be
Yeah. Yeah.
confused with the theory of mind as in a
Yeah.
philosophical framework for,
Yeah.
for trying to understand the
Mm.
mind itself and consciousness. But yeah,
Mm.
I said to him, this theory of mind is how you get around the problem of solipsism. Because
Mm.
if you just ignore it and say that only your mind exists and it's solipsism, then you're going to find yourself short in trying to explain why is it that on your screen of perception, which is the only thing that exists, why is it that everything on that screen of perception looks as though a plurality of minds exists? So it's
Mm.
like, so why would you be deceiving yourself with that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And then you throw into the mix kind of like totally surprising events that occur
yeah,
to you. You could in no way have anticipated, right? From
yeah.
from your own experience. But of course, he could say, well, we've got this subconscious domain as well as machinations going on in that level, and that manifests sometimes on a So there's always an answer for this. But for
Yeah,
me, it's just unhelpful.
yeah,
It's as simple as that. It's like,
yeah,
well, if we get snagged on questioning whether other minds exist, we're not going to make any progress, right? So
yeah.
it's like,
He
maybe,
needs a bit of pragmatism. Like you said, you're more
and
pragmatic.
also
Yeah,
heart as well, because I mean, for me, philosophy is love of
yeah.
wisdom, and love is a feeling, right? So for me, it's kind of
Sophia,
like,
isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's a convergence. I mean, I named my youngest daughter Sophia, in honor of
that's
this
great, man.
idea, and
Yeah,
it means a lot to me. But it is love of wisdom. It's not dispassionate, kind of mechanistic assessment of wisdom. It's love of wisdom, right? So that involves feelings,
absolutely.
and feelings. They certainly, look, I know we're a kind of like an instantiation of some sort. We're primates on a rock in space, right?
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
that. I get that, right? And that's another sort of conversation. But we have access to something much deeper than that, don't we?
absolutely.
Right. And,
And
we could start talking about some of the great scientists who've had like seizures and flashes of inspiration and they've meditated. We could talk about how Einstein arrived at some of his thinking, not through hard-assed kind of like,
but through
mathematical
insight.
reasoning, but kind of intuitive. He used to go into meditative states. He talked about this, right?
Yeah,
Newton was a freaking alchemist,
yeah.
Newton,
He was. Yeah, alchemy,
and
astrology. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, and so some of the great thinkers in our past have been aware of the transcendent, and I
yeah,
think that there's a deep well that all of us can pull on, right? And
absolutely.
I wish I could get better at doing it, right? But
Yeah,
I think that there are kind of sudden flashes of inspiration given to us by the great other,
yeah.
whatever that is, and it's what we are.
Yeah,
We
and
are.
actually through lucid dreaming, we can get flashes of inspiration, and also we can get to know ourselves. Lucid dreaming can actually be a tool to know
Mm,
thyself, as they were. You
mm,
can get to know your own mind, how it works. Even how the self, as in the little self, the identity, who you believe yourself to be in this world, how
mm,
that is an illusion, because in dreams you almost forget yourself. I tend to say that in lucid dreaming, the lucid dreaming self is the one that resembles the waking self uh, closely, is the one that is closer to the waking self than any other dreaming self. Because if you're not lucid,
Mm,
you can
mm,
identify with anything. You can even have false memories
mm.
of absolutely
Yeah,
everything, and you believe the illogical. But if
yeah.
you're lucid, if you're the lucid self, you're not quite the waking self, but you're close enough to the waking self because you also have waking life memories. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of Alan Worsley?
No.
Right, Alan Worsley. He was also a sleep expert, and he came up and he was a lucid dreaming and is exploring like dream states, and he came
Mm.
up with the concept of bizarre thinking, right?
Okay.
Bizarre thinking. So he was thinking to himself, in dreams, in normal dreams, ordinary dreams, we tend to think very differently to the point where it's absurd. And then
Mm.
he said, "Let me investigate the lucid dreaming state, right?" So he was in the lab, and he decided to induce a lucid dream. So I think he used the technique of trying to separate from the body. So he didn't see his body, by the way, but he separated from the sleeping body stencil, as it were. So the
Right,
sleeping body
right.
position, he moved away from it, and he found himself in a replica of the hospital where the lab happened to be.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, yeah. So
That's
he got up, right. So he's a dream, an inaccurate replica of the hospital he was
go for
in,
it.
right. And but
Yeah.
he found that he was still plugged to the machines that were trying to measure him. So he still had the cables attached to his body,
Even in his
measuring the rhythm.
astral state, he still had those physical constraints.
Right. So it wasn't like an astral cord or anything like that. It was actually the same plugs in real
Wow.
life because he plugged himself to the machines, and he
Yeah.
still had the same cables, and he was still attached to a dream machine, right? So
Wow.
so he knew he was dreaming. He was like, wow, that's interesting. So he decided to leave the hospital. He went outside, and it began to rain in the dream world. And as it began to rain, and he knew, bear in mind, he knew he was dreaming. He
Yeah.
suddenly worried about the equipment getting wet. I thought, oh my God, it's raining. Let me go back. And it wasn't until he woke up that he realized, hold on a minute, I knew I was dreaming, and yet I was worried about the dream equipment. That doesn't make any sense. So
That.
so right there, it goes to show that the lucid dreaming self, even though it
Mm,
resembles the waking
mm,
self,
mm.
it's not quite there because
Yeah,
it's
it's a
still
bridge. It's like
lucid.
yeah, we touched on this earlier. It is like a bridge between if it's okay to be dichotomous like that and say there's a conscious and unconscious mind, which I
Yeah,
think that's a useful dichotomy because you're aware. I mean, for me, stuff happens under the surface and then suddenly it pops up into the conscious. And it's like I've been kind of like brewing something.
yeah,
And I couldn't give you a formal account of how I've arrived at a particular position, but it's there, it's under the surface, and then
yeah.
so it does seem like a useful descriptive model to say there's a conscious and unconscious mind because stuff comes up
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
and yeah, that's fascinating that
yeah.
he carried through some of those physical properties into the kind of dream
Into the
state.
dream.
It's like what a
Yeah,
bird, it's like how free we could be in that place, and we're still
yeah.
plugged in.
And you're still worried about the equipment getting wet, and it's like,
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
on a
yeah,
minute.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
dreaming. You know
Yeah.
those objects, the cables, everything else is just dream stuff, as it were,
Yes.
and you're still worried about the equipment getting damaged. And it's not
Yeah.
until he
Yeah.
woke up he realized,
Yeah.
why was I worried about the equipment? It was just a
Yeah.
dream, you know.
Yeah. That'd be just my luck. There's a chance to do something really epic, like fly with angels or something like that, and I'd be worried about my shoes getting wet or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
this what is it really, man? What is? Because I mean, some of your pictures, that backdrop picture there, which is beautiful, by the way. I love some of your
I
art.
know. I wish I could replicate it for you, and
But it's so hyper real. It's so, but yeah, yeah. I can guess that that's just as good as you can. But
yeah,
it has a hyper reality about it. The
yeah.
objects are larger than life somehow. You've conveyed it well.
It had an impact on me, to be honest. I've never seen anything like it before in my dreams ever since. It was just so it's like it was so colorful, ultra realistic, colorful. Everything. It's like almost like everything was made of love, and I could hear birds chirping. It was so, it's like, oh, and you know, that feeling. And then I could see little cottages, and I was thinking, who lives in them? Oh my God. And I had a nostalgic feeling. It's almost like I was inside you know, a fairy tale.
But you knew it. Did you know that place?
I didn't know that place.
Right,
I
right,
felt
right.
nostalgic, like I was home, but at the same time, I'd never seen it before, and I could see a massive rainbow, and I could see, you know, this winding river is so perfect, and well-groomed trees,
Yeah.
and you know, like
So, so,
a
so, so,
mountain and a golden city. Yeah,
so while you're experiencing, again, we're talking about that bridge, you've still got one foot in Arlindo in the material world because you're able to say, well, I don't recognize this place from my own
that's
Arlindo
right.
memories, but at the same time, I feel completely at home. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that sounds very instructive, if I
yeah,
may say.
and I could hear flutes and this beautiful music. Everything was just it's like it was filled with love, but
Yeah.
then something pulled me back, and as I was going when I came upon it, I had to go through a tiny bridge, like this very narrow bridge through a mirror in a replica of my dream house. So I went through it, and I had no expectation of what I was going to find, and there it was, and just as I was going through that bridge, there was a being that was kind of smiling at me, and it was really tall, and he had blue eyes, and it slanted blue eyes and very pale skin. So I'm thinking, oh, it's almost like an angel. That was my thinking, but I still think, oh, it's just the appearance of some kind of alien being almost.
Mm,
And I went through it, and I saw that I tend to call it Summerland, and the reason why I call it Summerland is because after that experience, and at the time, I was delving into the New Age movement because I was thinking, okay, I've got this materialistic framework, but at the
mm,
same time, I'm wondering if there is something to the New Age movement, and if through physics there is the possibility of some kind of afterlife. You know, maybe there is something that we, you know, I was wrestling with these ideas and exploring myself. So
mm,
I remember going to a local library at the time, and I found a book by Dave Fontana about the afterlife. And Dave
mm,
Fontana had amassed several reports from people who went to see mediums, and reports from mediums where the medium would um, serve as a, you know, a conduit for communication between the
mm,
living and the dead.
mm,
And in the book, right, and this was kind of like a synchronicity at the time, even though I didn't recognize it. I didn't know what synchronicities were. But in the book, I found the dead, descriptions of the allegedly descriptions of the dead according to the mediums as they came through the medium. When the living asked them, "Where are you right now?" they would say things like, "Oh, don't worry about us. We're in this beautiful place. There is a great river. There are cottages," and they would describe rainbows. And when I was reading that, I thought, "Oh my
mm.
God, that's
That's what you've just experienced.
what I just experienced." And then
Yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
people were describing, you know, these people who also ended up becoming New Agers. They were describing that place as Summerland or Summerlands, which is
Mm.
supposed
Oh
to
my
be like
God.
a, you
That's
know,
exactly what you described yours as.
yeah, yeah. So ever since I thought, well, I'm just going to describe this experience I had
Mm.
as Summerland. I'll try and depict it as much as I can because I thought I have to get this down on paper. I have to try and capture that beauty because it can't go unnoticed. I was inspired by it.
Mm. Was there actually that guy up there? Was there like an angelic figure in the sky, like that guy there?
Actually, that guy is supposed to be me because I was trying to depict me as
Well,
me.
I see you as an angelic figure.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. Thank you. You know, I thought I feel part of this reality, part of this place, this beautiful place. It's almost like I'm at home. So I thought it felt to me like it was heaven or some kind of heaven.
Mm.
So I thought to myself, in order to depict myself flying over it, you know, like Superman, I'm going
Mm.
to try and depict myself as some kind of, you know, I thought of
A
uh,
Sistine Chapel kind of thing.
like yeah, like Renaissance paintings, like some kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like cherub
yeah,
or some kind of angel.
yeah,
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe
I
it's
was going
meant
to
to be
say,
like
it looks extreme. If you're that ripped, mate, then good on you, man. You must live in the gym.
yeah, yeah. Imagine, yeah, I know. You know something. It's almost like trying to capture an ideal version of myself where I'm absolutely
Yeah,
happy. So you can
yeah.
understand the muscles as well. Yeah, it's like yeah,
Well,
everything's perfect here.
this is the thing, isn't it? If the likes of Anil Seth and Donald Hoffman are right,
Yeah,
then we do live within a theatre of perceptions based on kind of, stuff that crosses the boundary, the Markovian, if you like,
yeah,
from the well. And so, we may as well, if we have any control over the way that we characterize ourselves, we may as
yeah,
well do it in a way that we can enjoy and something that, so have a narrative, have a meaning, have a character, a personality, sort of,
yeah,
and be that thing, that's not to say that doubt and sort of prevarication and think, what should I do? That's
yeah,
all absolutely essential stuff. But even when you've arrived at even a small amount of certainty, you've got to somehow express that. And I think
yeah.
there's like a parallel here with Kastrup and his talk about the daimon.
Right, yeah. That's
And,
right.
and
Yeah,
I bet you could probably talk for freaking hours about this, right? And of
yeah.
course, I spoke to Patrick Harpur,
Patrick
who wrote
Harper. Yeah,
Dynamic. I
that's
mean,
amazing.
it's like it's really interesting, sort of looking at the stats on the videos. I bet you look at the stats, oh, I've got a new viewer and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of
Yeah,
it's addictive, right? But Patrick Harpur is one of those guests that keeps on getting people are
yeah.
really interested in that. There's a kind of a
It
rising
definitely
interest.
points to some kind of layer of reality that seems to be invisible
Yeah.
to most people. You
But
know,
he
and
was really interesting because he's sort of, in some ways, he's sort of quite pragmatic. And I tried to sort of lure him into the realm of metaphysical speculation. He was like, "No, I'm not doing that." Which I enjoy, and I respected that. But um, again, there was a certain kind of pragmatism. He was saying, "Look, people have been reporting these experiences with transcendental entities, angelic beings, nymphs, freaking elves."
fairies, elves,
Right from the
gnomes.
beginning, right? It's part of our narrative. It's archetypal for us. It's written into our very understanding of the world, right?
Absolutely,
And then,
absolutely.
and there was this kind of sense in which, again, we talked about our zealotry, for materialistic science. It's
Yeah,
basically trying to wipe all that out, saying, "Oh, it's just
yeah,
total nonsense. There's nothing to be
yeah.
learned from this."
I think
Um,
it's a layer
and
of reality that deserves investigation. And the
oh my
thing is,
God, yeah,
yeah,
because
if
people are reporting it, and
yeah, people are
why
reporting
should
it. Yeah,
why should we assume they're all liars? That's my
exactly. And the thing is, if these materialists are going to be truly skeptical, true
Mm.
skeptics, they need to at least take a look and investigate. Because if they just say,
Yes.
no, I'm not going to see if there's a gnome in your garden. I know you're telling me that there's more than. I'm not going to look. It's a waste of time because I know gnomes don't exist. Well, that's just dismissiveness. That's not
Yeah, yeah.
skepticism.
That's not science.
That's not science.
It's not science.
Absolutely.
Science has got where it's got because of curiosity and because of doubt and asking questions. And as you said, skepticism, right?
Yeah,
Skepticism should extend to your own foundations. And so materialists should be
absolutely.
occasionally, so I'm not saying they should be wandering around in fear of their own ideas, but every so often they should think, does this really make sense? And the thing is,
Absolutely.
there's a career, there's professionalism wrapped around this. There's people whose, reputations depend upon it. And when I said to Donald Hoffman, I said, look, you're very brave, Don.
He is.
I kind of I regretted some of the wording actually from that interview. I'll square with you because I
I
said, "Oh,
thought
how does it fit?"
I thought
Because
it
I
was
said,
absolutely fine.
"Well, I don't know. Yeah, but what we're like
You are your own
internally."
worst critic.
Oh God, well, yeah, well, hopefully the best artists are. That's what they say.
That's true. That's
But,
true. Same here. I tend to criticize myself. But yeah, you
well,
were saying Donald Hoffman. Yeah,
I get told off for being humble, right? And stuff like that. But I am, I don't know anything, right? But anyway, so the question with Donald Hoffman, I said, what does it feel like to think that a lot of your colleagues think you're crazy? And I really
yeah.
regret saying that because he kind of, I don't know whether but anyway, but
Well,
he
they
said,
do.
he said, Matt, that's what tenure is for, and tenure is when you've already had your academic career, you get kind of like what's a symbolic role, a chair, a professorial role at university, but you've done the hard toil. You can start
Yeah,
saying what you like, basically.
yeah.
And but that's sad that that's how it kind of is. But I think that's changing, isn't it?
I'll tell
And
you
you
something.
look.
If you manage to get him back on your show, um, because you've
Oh, I'd
already
love
broken the
to,
ice with
love
him.
to.
Yeah, yeah. It would be interesting. It would be nice to hear from him about the icosahedron and anything else that
Mm,
they found about
yeah,
the amplituhedron and
yeah.
how the investigation, how the study is progressing.
Yeah,
It'd
the
be
bridge
really interesting.
building,
Yeah,
the bridge building from these amplitahedra, these kind of non-entropic geometric structures.
yeah.
Fuck does that mean, right?
On the step scale. Yeah,
But it's like this is where some of my kind of technical understanding has to stop because I don't know the maths.
yeah.
Although I have looked
Same
into
here.
a bit of it, so I know a little bit about Bayesian chains and things like that.
Yeah,
But it's fascinating because this is what we've talked about, myself, yourself, Stephen, sort of post-materialist science, right?
yeah,
So doing away with the constraints that we think we have around space-time, the Planck length, and so on and so forth, and
yeah,
just doing away with those assumptions, which is what's led to so much success with these scattering amplitudes and amplitahedra.
yeah, yeah,
Doing away with space-time has led to better science, and so
yeah,
that's. I mean that it's a gift, isn't it?
yeah. It
And
definitely is.
this
And actually,
Nima Akami Ahmed has been going on about this for a long time. I mean, some of his lectures, Space Time is Doomed, they're 15 years old, 10, 15 years old
yeah,
now,
yeah.
you know. And
It's just taking proliferation just now. It's beginning to become more popular, and
yeah.
it's almost like it's subverting what science was saying before, prior to
Mm,
decades like the 40s or even the 20s, before the advent of quantum physics. It's almost like it's flipping our understanding on its head, what we thought we
mm,
knew about reality. There is also something I want to check out, and maybe it's
mm.
a question for Donald Hoffman, is about the spectral gap. I don't know if you've heard of it. Apparently, there's this phenomenon in physics called the spectral gap, and the spectral gap is, and I think it's got something to do with the Planck scale. The expressions in reality only go as far as the Planck scale, or up to a certain point, even above the Planck scale, and they
Right,
can't um, explain why there's a gap. It's something like that. They can't explain why there's a gap because, according to the standard model, it should be possible to have more expressions within that gap. It's something like that. Don't quote me on it
right.
because I'm
Well,
not
it's like the
I'm not
sort
an
of
expert.
the quantum equivalent of the missing link or
Yeah,
something.
so there's like a gap. There's like a gap,
Right.
and they say there could be. It's possible to have more expressions in physics within that gap, but they find nothing. There's like a gap
Mm,
from
right,
you know from
right,
absolute, from the absolute base of reality where we can't detect anything up until a certain point, and where
right.
all those expressions manifest. But there's a if you look it up, if you Google spectral gap, I mean, when we're done with this, you will see what I'm talking about, because I came across it like right at the beginning, not long after those the trio physicists won the Nobel Prize for
Mm.
disproving local realism. I came across the concept of a spectral gap, and it would
Yeah,
be
yeah. So,
interesting
so
to hear.
what are the what does it imply? Is it something to do with the limits of our perceptual capability, or does it say something about fundamental?
Well, it says something
Let's
about
see.
the limits of what we can measure, and what we've detected so far with our models and our instruments. And the thing is, we have a level of predictability within science, and according to our model, there should be something there. Like, we should
Mhm.
find at least something there,
So
something detectable.
it's
But
almost like the equivalent of the sort of periodic table. It's like we found all, and then there's these, and that has actually
yeah,
worked, hasn't it? That they've
yeah.
located new elements because of that structure, and
That's
so there
right. So
should be
it's a bit
something
of a
here. Yes.
mystery as to why
Yeah.
there's a gap there, but nobody can find
Aye.
anything there. Nobody can detect anything. So it would be something that perhaps we could ask Donald Hoffman if we ever get the chance,
Mm.
and he might
So,
say a little bit more about that, you know,
could, do
because
you
he deals
think?
with people like Arkani Ahmed and others and his team, and they deal with
Hmm.
surfaceology, which is an upgrade from Feynman's diagrams, and
Right,
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yes. So
right.
it's really it looks at that, and I remember reading years ago when I was going through my materialistic phase, a book by Richard Feynman, and I really recommend it. It's a very good book. It's QED, quantum electrodynamics, and
Mhm.
Feynman's diagrams were a precursor to the method of surfaceology that they use now. So
Right,
through surfaceology, they connect all these lines to try and figure out what's beyond the Planck scale, and then they're coming up with all these geometric shapes. So Feynman was doing something similar back then, and if you read the book,
right.
even back then, it's an old book now. Uh, Feynman's QED was already talking about equations that always seem to predict things about the quantum realm and even the classical world, and they always work, but nobody knows why. Nobody knows why those equations work. So it's like a bit spooky. It's like, wow,
Yeah,
why
that's
is that?
yeah, and how can it be that minds like human minds
Yeah,
can stumble across these sorts of models that work in this way? And it's like the unexpected consequences of theories. Sort of like take Einstein, for example. He
yeah,
didn't really like the singularities and things like, he was like, well, I don't really like that. But they were just natural consequences of his theory. So
that's right.
it's like you need this kind of insight, this penetration into Platonic space or something like that, if you like, this
That's right.
bolt from the blue, and then you get this theory, and it's like, well, yeah, but I
Yeah,
don't like the consequences, and I don't, Einstein said, I
yeah,
actually don't believe in some of the consequences of my own theory,
yeah.
right? And so,
Me and
so
Scott
so
were
here,
saying,
that's fascinating, isn't it? Because it suggests that there is this realm of sort of truth that just does what it does, whether we like it or
yeah,
not.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. I mean, there are so many theories, and just the other day when me and Scott had our interview, Scott was saying maybe there's something about reality that explore, because we were talking about consciousness being fundamental, and he said maybe it's a kind of mind that explores absolutely everything, every nook and cranny. So it's a kind of ergodicity that has to know absolutely everything, and it made me think about
A freaking control freak.
yeah, a freaking control freak, and he made me think of Stephen Wolfram's Ruliad. Like
Right, yeah, 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 yeah.
everything is connected. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I bet you Wolfram's a bit of a control freak. You can tell.
yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah,
Because I mean, he even publishes some of his own like sort of live CEO videos where he's acting as a CEO. He charges companies to be
oh,
their CEO. I mean, it's all spreadsheets and Python and logic
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And
He's
I,
become a bit
I
obsessed with
do
them.
sense with Stephen that he does have a desire to want to be able to. Um, Not control everything, but sort of understand everything. And that's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing. I'm driven by that too. But I think that where he's gone with, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about his Ruliad, his cellular automata?
it's
Is
possible
he
that
onto something? What's going on with Wolfram?
yeah, it's possible that Wolfram's mind is so complex and is a very intelligent individual to the
Hmm.
point where he's almost trying to make the map as complex as the territory, and hence the route he has.
Possibly even more complex.
Yeah, 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 because he would then have to produce some kind of model that goes
Hmm.
beyond what we can see. And it would
Hmm.
end up being more complex than reality itself, if that's even possible, you know.
Well, yeah, but I, I mean, I wish I understood it, number one, right?
Yeah,
And I can't remember the name of the mathematician guy that's working with him, and he went online and gave a talk about it, and he said that actually he doesn't draw the same sort of
yeah,
ontological conclusions that Wolfram does, and he says for him it's very much a maths exercise,
yeah,
and I think from his point of view, he was just building functions that allow you to kind of map from one sort of physics template to another in some sense, you know.
Yeah.
And whereas Wolfram's saying, no, 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 this shows that A, space-time is discrete,
Yeah.
right? He seems to want to, he's down with Zeno, you know. Well, no, no,
Right.
he's not down with Zeno. Zeno was continuous, wasn't he? Because he said space-time is infinitely divisible.
All
That's why.
right.
That's why
Zeno's
Zeno's you can
paradox.
never
Yeah.
get from A to B because you have to
Yeah.
traverse an infinite
Because
amount
it's
of,
infinitely divisible. Yeah. Yeah.
and it would take an infinite amount of time to traverse infinite,
Yeah.
you know, points. But that's kind of like that's calculus and all that kind of stuff, which
Yeah.
I'm not that good at.
So we
But
can never reach one another. We can only seem like we're getting close, but
yeah,
there's always a
but
gap between us because
yeah,
space is always reducible to something. We can always halve it and halve it and halve it ad
mm,
infinitum. Yeah.
which I mean, well, I don't know what I mean. I tend to, I'm more of a continue. I don't believe in the discrete. For me, it sounds crazier.
Yeah.
Imagine that we live in a pixelated sort of discrete sort of universe where you can hit a baseline and say
Yeah.
that's small. That sounds crazier to me than the continuous idea. But of
Yeah.
course, all of this, from a sort of Kantian perspective, space and time are
Yeah.
modes of understanding or perception, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And when I say we, I mean the royal we, and I connect us. I
Yeah.
connect us. I connect all humanity, all life, the whole universe.
I think
Why,
some of us.
why are we doing this?
Yeah.
What's the, what?
Here's my theory, right? My theory. We're all
Let's have it.
we're all human beings, and we like to story tell, and some of us are trying to come up with narratives which are ever so complex in the hopes of trying to describe reality itself as best as we can, and we end up with convoluted narratives, and
So
then
hang
we
on,
come.
hang on. So do you think minds fundamentally are doing that, or just human personalities are doing that?
I think human personalities are doing it because it's almost like a calling to try and understand everything else because they are aware that they are so limited. We are very aware that we are so limited minds in space and time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's an effort to try and come up with a narrative about reality that satisfies us. We need a
Mm,
satisfying explanation. And it
mm.
seems like every explanation that we come up with we're never satisfied. It,
Mm.
it always
Because
leaves wanting more.
because maybe the pursuit is the end game, the desire to understand.
Yeah,
Perhaps that is actually the goal,
yeah.
right?
Like Frederico Fajin says, it's trying to know itself.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
as consciousness, it's trying to understand
mm,
itself, and it
yeah,
can't help but come up with so many
yeah.
narratives, so many worlds, so many perspectives, and in the end, it doesn't realize that from our perspective, anyway, from this mental state, we don't realize that it's already happy in its purest form. It's already joyous. It's already free.
Can I
And
ask you something there briefly, Arlinda, before I forget?
yeah,
The beer's kicking in now, but um, would you say that the total sum of all experiences, right, is that God?
right.
Is that what we are fundamentally? So I mean, is that and also is there a meta agent that is aware of all of these experiences? Because I feel like there's someone with me. You
I'm
know?
going to say this. I'm going to say this, right? We can all be agnostic or atheistic in regards to many concepts of God. You ask someone to describe the God that they believe in, and they might say something that you might not resonate with, and you might say, "Well, I don't believe in that," and you're
Mm,
entitled to do that. But at the same time, if we are going to take this concept of God seriously, and if there is anything deserving of that label, in my opinion, if we must preserve that concept, if we're going to use it,
if big if, right?
if
Yeah.
yeah, big
Yeah.
if we're going to use it, then it has to be something perfect, and he has to create everything. So he has to be a creator, and he has to be omniscient and omnipotent and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
omnipresent. And
Mm.
I think the only thing deserving of that label, which is the only thing that surely exists, right, within
Mm.
which all illusions can make an appearance, is consciousness.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
consciousness.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
consciousness um, is the foundation of all reality. Nothing can be said to exist without consciousness.
Yes.
Is it omniscient? Well, if everything that can be said to exist has to be in consciousness, it
Mm.
potentially knows everything.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
even human beings have the potential to be omniscient given enough time. If we could
Mm.
prolong our lives long enough, if we never died, if we find the key to immortality as
Yeah.
a human being and we could
Yeah.
preserve it till the end of
But
time, till the end of this universe, till the
is
cold
the
death
whole
of the universe.
is the whole thing
Yes,
omniscient? So is the sum total of all experiences that in some sense that is omniscience, isn't it?
that is omniscience, and the only uh, concept of God that deserves serious attention, which is the best concept of a perfect God. That would be it. That would be mind itself. That would be
Mm.
consciousness and everything
Right.
that can find expression within it.
And is it
So
able, just, I know that we're in speculative metaphysics here now. That's fine because I love
yeah,
that. But is it, can, does it is it aware of itself and can it change its own direction?
my view would be, and I strongly suspect this, would be that if it's not aware of any concepts within itself, if it doesn't have a narrative or is it's not perceiving a world around itself, right, or the illusion of a world, then it can't help but be aware of something. So immediately becomes aware of itself. So it's the awareness of awareness. And now we are in Rupert Spira's territory, aren't we? We're talking about because that's its being. Being equates with consciousness, and it can't
Yeah,
help but be aware of something. So it becomes
yeah,
aware of its own existence. So it's the I am that I am. So right
yeah.
there, that's God. That would be the only
Mm.
God that we can possibly believe in, and
Yeah.
nobody can doubt unless you're an eliminativist like Daniel Dennett, and
Mm.
you want to say that consciousness is an illusion, which is a bit absurd. But this is the one
Mm.
God that should be evident to anyone. If consciousness is to be regarded as
Mm.
God because it's fundamental,
Mm.
in the idealistic framework,
Yeah.
then consciousness can be seen as a kind of God and the only God that anyone, and it would be you, it would be me. So you are God, and at the same time, it's in you, it's around you, according to perception, and
Mm.
its existence itself. It's
So
the light that shines.
do you think science will eventually dovetail with spirituality? And will science eventually go on a path where some of those properties of the cosmos you've described it will be empirically obvious? So for example, will we be able to prove that there's some telos, right? There's some kind of purposive direction of travel. There's a will do you think it's possible that science can kind of actually say, yeah, idealism is true? Or yeah, or yes, the universe is a mind, or yes, the
Yeah.
universe has purpose. I mean, do you think it can? I mean, for me, I think it is beginning to,
I
right?
think we can have an ideated science if we take idealism to be the default position, and it deserves to be regarded as the default mode more than materialism because it's so
Fewer assumptions.
parsimonious.
There's fewer assumptions. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the thing is, I think it can point to a kind of metaphysics, but not necessarily prove it because it can only make predictions based on how nature behaves. It can't
Mm.
tell you exactly what
Well,
it is unless you're going to start from the
well,
viewpoint of consciousness itself.
yeah, but hang on. So what if I mean, because Stephen Wolfram said some crazy things to me. I mean, he said that, he said he considered that it's plausible the weather may have a mind. but we just don't have the right kind of interface to be able to talk to it, right? We don't have a universal translator like on Star Trek. And Mike Levin's saying some similar things, right? Um, so what if we did develop, in the same way that we've kind of like used the EM spectrum to show, we can detect infrared, ultraviolet, microwaves that we can't directly physically perceive. Is it not possible that we will develop tools to be able to converse with the weather or the moon or and actually say, well,
Right,
yeah, we acknowledge you now as a kind of an agential being of some sort. Um,
right.
and well, I think it is. I think the answer is yes.
I
And,
think
and
it's possible.
yeah,
I think it's
it
possible.
will at least inform our metaphysical opinion, our view. If
Yeah,
not, give us final evidence of the
yeah.
mind of the mindedness. I mean, my
Oh, I think I lost you there for a minute. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you're back. Yeah,
yeah. Mike Levin's program was called TAME, Technical Approach to Mind Everywhere.
yeah,
So the clue's in the name. He is searching for minds in unconventional spaces, and they seem to exist. These frog skin cells seem to do
that's
what they
all.
want.
That's amazing.
We just assume that they're going to, that's what they're designed to do. We've got the genome, we've got the DNA. That's what a frog skin cell. But no, they're forming communities. They're reproducing. They're rebuilding themselves in their own
Yeah,
form. They've got a plan. They've got
yeah.
opinions.
They have a plan. There's
They have
some
a
kind of teleology behind it.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
some
and
kind of intention. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you can't derive intention
absolutely.
from unintentional elements. If you
Mm,
take materialism to be the case, then you will find it hard. You'll have a hard time
yeah,
trying to derive intention from it. So it's almost
yes.
like in consciousness, it's a bit like
You won't be able to see it. You just won't be able to see it.
yeah, it's like what Tom Campbell says. He actually has a very special definition for consciousness. He says Thomas Campbell.
Mm,
He
mm,
has he tends to use computer analogies to describe the
mm.
world. You
Yeah, the
know,
virtual reality. One thing, I'm just going to get another beer.
yeah, no problem.
Such a bad example. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Thomas
No, no,
Campbell.
yeah. So he has a very special definition for consciousness. He says consciousness is awareness. Of course, that's obvious. It's awareness with a choice.
Free
Right.
will. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that. I love that.
yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
do I. When he said it, because he went on the Know Thyself podcast with Andre Duckham, and he said, "Yeah, consciousness is awareness with a choice, because if
Mm,
you don't have a choice, it doesn't go anywhere. So, at the
mm.
moment it has a choice, it can move. It can use the present as a point of reference to derive the future, and as it moves along, and it develops memory, and
Yeah,
it has a notion of the past,
yeah,
and then it has intention, with choice it has intention,
yeah.
it intends to go somewhere,
Mm,
because if
mm.
it doesn't, it's
Nothing
just
could ever happen.
nothing can ever happen. Yeah.
Nothing could ever happen. I mean, I remember I was saying to Chris Fields, I said, is it possible to imagine like a universe with no minds in it, right? And he said, well, yeah, it's possible to imagine, but nothing would ever happen,
Yeah,
right? Because, I
absolutely.
mean, this is the thing. It's a little bit like this sort of prime mover, the first cause kind of problem. But for me, it's obvious. It just feels, in my heart, it's obvious that there's a will
Yeah,
behind stuff, right? And when I look at nature, I see intelligence, and I don't mean individuated units kind of like battling and fighting, the kind of violent ape hypothesis, the neo-Darwinistic stuff. I see cooperation. I see a pursuit of novelty and beauty.
yeah,
I know I'm a bit of a hippie. I get a bit when people start using the word love and things are made of love. I'm like, "Oh, what's this? It seems a bit quasi-religious and stuff." But I get it. I know what you can just see it.
yeah,
It's just obvious,
yeah.
right? And it
And it has to
just
be something
just
more than just oxytocin, right?
just meditate near a tree, right?
Yeah,
Just I mean, there's a bunch of Japanese GPs, right, health practitioners, and now prescribing, they call it tree bathing. right? So they're sending these businessmen and sort of office workers to basically just go and lie down in the roots of an ancient oak, right, in a Japanese forest.
It sounds great.
Right. And it's changing people's lives, right? Because I mean, there's this thing called oh God, what's it called? It'll come to me in a minute. The theory and the science of symbols. Um,
Right, it's oh my God, yeah, I see what you're saying. To science
yeah,
of
yeah.
symbols, it
Se
starts with an S.
semiotics,
Yes, yes,
semiotics.
semiotics. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there was a brilliant interview. The guy's name escapes me, but it was with the on the Accenture Foundation, Kastrup's crew,
Yeah, I saw that
and
actually.
he
I can't
talks about
remember the
semiotics.
guy's name, but yeah, semiotics is
It was
brilliant.
amazing, and it was
Yeah,
kind of like it was dovetails with Levin because it respects that there are minds there. It's frickin' shamanism or animism in some sense because it's
yeah,
saying yeah, there is a spirit in the tree, in the frickin' river, and
that's right.
there
Yeah,
are, and there probably and it's funny that the ancients had a gut feel for this and an understanding and instinct for these insights that modern
yeah,
science is now saying yeah, yeah, you were fucking right.
yeah,
But the semiotics is like the idea of, I mean, Linton came down pretty hard on this stuff as he can do.
yeah, yeah,
I like I like having that on board. I like that. Yeah, and he makes some good points, but I
yeah,
can't I can't get past the idea that
yeah.
fundamentally
I think when
everything
the
is
two of us
about symbol.
clash,
Everything is about symbols. Everything is about meaning.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
that's right. Yeah,
Even in some sort of materialist, you say, well, as an entity, I'm building a world model, a negotiated position, right? That sort of kind of gives me the impetus to want to participate, right? So that, I mean, even that fundamentally is about meaning, right?
yeah,
And anyway, this guy was saying that if you cut down, how in Britain we're always building causeways through hills and chopping up like
yeah,
acres and acres of ancient land and forest and stuff, right? We're down to
yeah.
like 5. I think we've only got about 5% ancient forest left on this island, right? And most of that's in Scotland, right?
Right.
This
Yeah,
guy's saying, you're actually cutting away tens, hundreds of thousands of years of understanding, of symbology, of meaning, all of the creatures in those areas depended upon these. And it's not
yeah.
just
All
kind
that
of
knowledge.
all that knowledge and understanding
Yeah,
and sense of belonging and being and then the heartfelt, and it's funny this whole idea of anthropomorphization, how, the materialists criticize it. Oh, you're anthropomorphizing. That dog isn't depressed. It's just not functioning at an optimum level.
yeah.
Of course it's
It's
fucking
all
depressed.
clockwork.
Animals
Yeah,
don't feel pain. They're just, mechanic. Of course, it's yelping. It feels pain the
yeah.
same
It
way.
feels pain. Yeah,
And so to deny that obvious
exactly.
connection with you can almost when I see if someone kicks a dog, I can feel it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So can
If
I,
someone
man. Yeah,
if I see my kids get hurt, you get that funny,
yeah. You get that feeling. Yeah,
it's like physiological empathy, right?
yeah.
And I mean, again, for me, further
You
kind
can
of
intuit that they feel pain, and the thing is, they
yeah,
also try to communicate with you.
yeah,
When they're hungry, they try to get your attention. They want to play. They get the ball.
and
They, they yeah,
they help you when you're feeling down.
yeah.
Like
They
in
do. Yeah,
exactly the same way that Mike Levin's these anthrobots that are made from human lung cells, in
yeah,
exactly the same way that you put them near some damaged tissue, they start rebuilding that tissue,
yeah. It's amazing
and that's their natural bent isn't to destroy. Their natural bent is to say
to create,
cooperate with their
to
neighbors.
fix. Yeah, yeah,
It's a kind of cellular socialism. It's like,
yeah,
well, let's help each other. Oh, that guy needs some help. Let's go fucking
yeah,
help.
yeah.
And
It's almost like they have a kind of inner orientation to do something. They have a kind of will, a kind of, going back to teleology. That's exactly what's taking place there, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. There's a
It's the best
local sort of
explanation, really.
in a way, yeah, in a way,
Yeah,
it's kind of and it's quite humanistic and it's totally anthropomorphic. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
there's struggles and there's out alliances, there's love going on down at those levels, I think,
yeah,
and just because we can write 1,000 words of poetry about this thing called love, and a
yeah,
cellular collective just gives us blips on a
yeah.
scanner or something. Fundamentally, I mean, I
All you
suppose,
need is love, isn't it?
well,
It's,
absolutely.
it's a
Da, da,
hippie in
da, da,
you. I'm a
da.
hippie. I'm a hippie at heart myself as well, a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think I am. I always have been. I've always struggled with people suffering, and
Yeah,
as a child, I used to sort of say, "Why is everyone so miserable?
yeah,
Why is everyone taking everything so seriously?" I go into town and people just
exactly.
stood there in queues looking at the
Just
ground.
enjoy life.
Why aren't people skipping about in absolute glee?
Yeah. And the
Um,
thing is, people fail to remember that love can bring them together. Love brings, it's like an attractive force, and then it creates harmony. And
mm,
even someone like Swedenborg, Emanuel Swedenborg, the scientist and turned mystic.
that's a new name to me again. That's a new name.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's actually one of the scientists. He's a polymath, inventor, chemist, physicist. He was a jack of all trades, and is one of the people that came up with the precursor to the neuron. He came up with the first model of the
Wow.
neuron before it was
Wow.
actually discovered. Yeah, so this guy was ahead of his time, and towards the end of his life, he had some. He began to pay attention to dreams, and then he had a mystical experience where a being uh, removed a veil, kind of like a veil from his left eye, and then he began
Oh,
to see the spiritual realms. He began
wow.
to see that reality was more extensive. And the thing is, he actually predicted his own death because he
Well, the date of his own death.
the date of his own death. If you Google it, you'll find out, and because he was making all sorts of predictions, and and the guy who founded the Methodist Church, John Wesley, he was secretly admiring Swedenborg, and suddenly Swedenborg sent him a letter just out of the blue, um, saying, "I know that you are interested in me," and John Wesley had never spoken to anyone
What
about
the
his
fuck?
interest. Yeah,
No way. That's insane.
that is insane, and you know and Swedenborg said, "I've been told in the world of spirits that you're interested in me," and John Wesley, yeah, John
That's giving me
Wesley
the
wrote back saying,
heebie-jeebies. Dude, it's getting dark here. That's giving me the heebie-jeebies right
"Yeah,
now.
imagine that. If you read it, it's really
Yeah,
spooky." John
yeah,
Wesley
yeah.
says, "Okay, I'm going to go away because I'm going to be traveling for 5 months, but when I get back, we can have a conversation." And Swedenborg said, "Well, by the time you get back, I will have gone to the spirit world," and he gave the date and the month, and I will
That's
no
when he
longer
died.
be here. And
That's insane. That's crazy.
on that day, he passed away. And the thing is, his Lord servant girl, where he was living, he had an assistant. She even said, "It's funny because he told me exactly the same thing, and he was excited about it. He said he spoke as if he was going to some merrymaking, and he was all excited. On this day, I'm going to be going to the spirit world for the last time, and I'm not coming back." And on that day, he
Wow.
died. So it's one of those
It's interesting that
coincidences.
he said he's not coming back. He's finally left Sansara, maybe. It's yeah, because he
Maybe.
was so enlightened and illuminated, he understood the
Yeah,
path, and it's time
yeah,
to yeah.
yeah.
But no, oh
And
gosh,
and the thing is, he made so many claims. He said, "Love is like the glue of the spirit world."
right,
He said sometimes some couples on Earth, when they pass away, they can spend time in their own constructed heavens,
right.
and they can experience being together for thousands of years before they move on. He's really deep.
Oh,
It's really deep. It's really deep.
that's really sweet.
That is
I
really
was going to
sweet.
say, I just wanted to note something, Arlindo, actually, because I've had a couple of beers, so I'm probably feeling sort of quite loose-lipped. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I admire the breadth of your reading and your interests. It's like you've done a deep dive in so many areas, and you pull it all together so nicely. It's just I love where you are, the intersection that
Oh,
you're in.
cheers, man.
'Cause there's very little that you've ever said that I thought, oh, it's all of interest to me, and that's that's a beautiful thing, and
Yeah.
so yeah, don't stop, don't stop doing it
Yeah.
because it's
I,
pretty.
I just think these things deserve study.
You're a really good storyteller. I think that and you convey information beautifully, and you
Yeah.
have such a love for it as well. So
Yeah. We're all storytellers, aren't we? But yeah.
yeah. That's true. Yeah. When I
Yeah.
asked Chris Fields, I said, what is a mind, and he said he thinks it's a story we tell ourselves.
That's a good way of putting it,
Mm.
actually.
Mm.
and it's
So do
verifiable,
you,
really.
but do you find some of that? I mean, I'll fess up and say I find some of that personal identity stuff a bit creepy, because the thing is, like, we've spent most of our lives kind of thinking, thinking I'm Matt Gray, and sort of like that's, well, there are my memories. These are the things that happened to me. My feelings are this way because of this, that, and the other, and all this structured kind
Yeah,
of analysis of my own history and so on. And it's like, well, the one thing that holds it all together is this idea of mad. But now, of course, the human cells replace themselves every 7 years. And it's like the ship of Theseus. It's like, every bit of the physical me, whatever that means,
yeah,
has been totally replaced, right?
yeah,
And and there's this sense in which everyone's saying, neuroscience is saying, biology is saying, philosophy is saying that identity isn't what we think it is, right?
yeah,
We people, and it's the natural thing to do, and it's probably helpful for a mammal of our size and
yeah,
inclinations to think like this, to have our own history, and we're heroes in some kind of myth,
yeah,
and that's what holds it all together. But I find that a little bit creepy. I can't help it because we inevitably put a lot of stock in our identities, and it's my identity that's led me into things like philosophy and discussion and science, and to
yeah,
meet people like yourself, and
yeah,
so on the one hand we're saying, well, actually that shit ain't real, that's just but on
yeah.
the other hand it's that shit that's got us to that point. So what are your thoughts on that, if I may?
I think, right, that we don't completely lose ourselves. I think our true self is consciousness. That's the base, and we can identify with being many things, and we can undergo many changes throughout our lives, and many of the changes are based on what we experience and what we remember and how we remember things, and that can be distorted. Well, I mean, we know
Mm,
that, um, and it how we perceive the world very much depends on how we affect what we have between our ears, which Kastrup would say is a reflection of what mind is doing, kind of like a
mm,
knot in the mental medium, and but we also have to we, the science that we currently have can only study the rules of this reality as we perceive it, right? And
mm,
I think it's useful, but it can only go so far, and we have to be careful not to derive the wrong conclusions from it. Like, for example, we can say that there is no self in the sense that our identity, our identities in this world are only illusions
mm,
that we hold on to.
mm,
I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Vow, based on a true story, and they actually, so there was this couple, and they'd been married for 5 months, and then all of a sudden they were in a car accident, and the woman, I think it was Kim and something cricket, so the crickets, right, and the woman, she she suffered a blow to the head, so brain damage, and she ended up in a coma. And when she woke up, so she was in a coma for a few months,
mm.
and when she woke up, she knew how to speak English. I think she had trouble remembering her name, but she didn't remember her husband. It's almost
Wow.
like he had been wiped out from her memory.
Just
So
him, just him.
just him. So she
God.
remembered everyone else, but just him. She couldn't recall. Like, she remembered a few things, but
Seems a
it's
bit seems a bit convenient, maybe.
yes, it does. It does. Yeah,
But no,
I know what
but,
you're saying. Yeah.
but no,
So
that's fascinating. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's almost like she could remember most things prior to the 5 months that she had known him, but the five
Mm,
months where since she married him onwards, she couldn't
gone.
recall. So
Right,
it'd been
right.
wiped out from her memory.
So was it more to do with the chronology? It was just bad luck that he was in that chunk that was taken away. Or I mean, I just couldn't help but wonder: is there some agential decision? It's best I don't remember this bit of it.
Yeah, I think I tell you what, you've touched upon something, because she didn't remember, so the husband had to try to woo his wife and then try to jog her memory, or try to make
Mm,
her fall in love with him all over again. And she was like,
mm,
"Sorry, I don't remember you, don't know you, blah blah, this and that," right? And
mm,
it's funny that you say that, because in the film, they are depicted as getting a divorce, but in real life, they were devout Christians who didn't believe in divorce. But the thing is, they ended up getting divorced because, as it turns out, he was found out to be cheating on her while she was in a coma, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. So when you take that into consideration,
Mm,
and then you have those theories, especially from NDEers who say, "Oh, well, I was in a place where I picked my own life, and I chose to have these experiences, and I remember multiple lives." When you take that into consideration, and then you take
mm,
a look at the life of that couple and what that woman went through, she went through that gap in memory, but she was still herself. It was still an awareness remained, regardless of the memories and the experiences that she lost. But
mm,
it makes you think maybe she chose her life and
mm,
she knew that he wasn't the one for her, but
mm.
she needed to undergo some experiences with that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
order to extricate herself from that guy,
So
she went through a gap. She chose to forget within
it's
that life.
like there's
Yeah,
another aspect to her being, right? Which
yeah,
isn't just her tactical human being. It it's like a soul,
yeah.
right?
It's like a soul. Yeah,
So, maybe that's maybe it has access to all the subconscious, all the sort of archetypical stuff, and
yeah,
it kind of knows what's going on, and it has an interest in the conscious bit of that being,
yeah. And guess
in
what, right?
steering clear of that guy.
That's right. And guess what? The doctors said there's no guarantee that you are going to retrieve all your memories, from that
Mm,
gap.
mm,
Because your brain is damaged. But
mm,
there's neuroplasticity, and within time, you might retrieve some of the memories, or you might develop new memories, and the ones that you can't retrieve, what you've forgotten,
mm.
might be lost forever, right? And the
Okay.
thing is, as she was growing her brain back, right, developing new connections, prior to the coma, she never liked bananas, but after the coma, she developed a penchant for bananas. She developed new
Right.
connections, and she found herself liking bananas. So it's
Right.
like you might think, oh, that's a different person completely. But then you have to take into consideration, no, that's the same person, the same awareness, the same consciousness. It's
Mm,
just like a bit like a dream. You can be a different person in a dream.
mm,
It's almost like she
mm.
woke up to a new dream, which is
Yeah.
this reality, and
Yeah.
she developed a new personality. She had to
Yeah.
develop a new personality in order
Yeah.
to go about her business, and it just happens to be slightly different or
Mm.
radically different from the personality that she had before.
Yeah, I mean, personality is a really interesting one, isn't it? I'm glad you mentioned that word because it crystallizes this problem in a way. Because
Yeah,
it's the way we're taught, the stories we're told, they're about individuals, they're about heroes, they're about personalities, right? And so we put a lot of stock in this idea. And actually, there's a great book actually, Dice Man. I don't know whether you've come across that. It's about this
no,
guy. The author's name has escaped me, but it was about the obsession with personality. And
right,
and he said, I'm going to kind of he said, I'm going to abandon all that. Forget about the CV. Forget about who I am. I'm going to roll a dice every day to determine what I do on that day. And it's quite dark in places, right?
yeah,
It's almost like this kind of cult, this rebellion against the idea of fixed personalities, and some of what you're saying sort of reminds me of that.
yeah,
And I mean, we know that the brain can house multiple personalities, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
DID or multiple personality,
That's right. Yeah,
or and so personality isn't consciousness. Personality is another model that
that's right.
consciousness can do, isn't it? In the
So
same
you
way
can
the
have dissociations within dissociations. To use
Yes,
Kastrup's model,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I quite like the kind of the image of a sort of a water droplet sort of separating off from a main body of water, and you see this tiny thin
yeah. That's a good
thread.
analogy, actually. Yeah,
You see this tiny thin thread, and it sort of twists off from the main body of water. And you can imagine if there was a gush of wind, it could easily be pushed back, and it would easily just settle back into that blob.
yeah,
So I see us as kind of, we've sort of twisted off from the main mal in a way,
yeah.
as you
That's
pointed out.
right.
But
Yeah,
then there's things within our so-called bodies and minds and stuff. They're twisted off too within us. They're sort of dissociations almost. And
Sub-dissociation,
I
sub-personalities,
mean, dissociations go
sub-perspectives.
all the
Yeah,
way down,
yeah, that's right.
I
It's almost
mean,
like a fractal reality of selves and dissociations,
hmm,
personalities, points of
yeah,
view. Centers of consciousness.
yeah.
It's
In
it's
some ways,
amazing.
we're so varied and different, but in other ways, we're exactly the same as each other.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll tell you
In
what,
so,
me and my wife, we watched Identity again because I hadn't seen it in years, and
what's
I
that?
actually
Sorry, I
went,
don't know. Hey, Arlindo, just briefly, I'm going to have to take a quick bio break.
yeah, yeah, sure.
You've seen me put about 2 pints down. It's going to have to. It's going to have
No, no,
to.
no, go for it, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. I'll be right back, dude. Loving this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pause it for a bit and then I'll hit record again. Yeah, just a quick correction. The Vow, the film The Vow, is the story of the Carpenters. Yeah, it's the story of the name of the couple is Kim and Cricket Carpenter. Yeah. So Kim is the husband and Cricket is the wife. Just as a correction there. Recorded- I just recorded myself making a correction. It's the story of the Carpenters. Yeah, Kim and Cricket Carpenter. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's right.
Just,
Yeah. But
just,
anyway, we were talking about personalities and yeah,
oh gosh.
and I was telling you about the film Identity. If you ever get the chance, if you haven't seen it, watch it because it's about dissociations and it's about this guy who's a convict and he's got multiple personality disorder, dissociative.
Right,
And the
right.
whole film
Okay.
is inside his mind. Yeah, if you watch that film, and
Yeah.
then he has to find through one of the personalities played by what's that guy? Anyway, through one of the personalities, he has to find out who the killer is within that world.
His group. Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and
Just
the characters don't know that they're living inside someone's mind. They think
no,
it's
no,
the
they
real
don't.
world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just briefly, Arlindo. I've only got another 20 minutes.
No, no, no
Just
problem, no problem.
yeah, yeah.
It's already rich, isn't it?
I was just had a telling off from the boss. We've been at this for a good couple of hours. This has been. I just want to say
Yeah,
this has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, honestly, time has never
definitely.
traveled so quickly for me
Yeah.
because you're one of those dangerous characters, if I may say, that I could just talk to forever. You know,
Yeah.
so it's really, really good
Likewise.
fun. But we've got another 20 minutes. So should we? I mean, how do you want to use that time, dude? It's up to you.
Let me see. I've wrote some ideas down, but yeah, I really want to know more about hyper scanning.
Oh God, that's so
Or
fascinating, isn't
yeah,
it?
and we could also go into in the last few minutes. I mean, you can go over about your thoughts about AI, or where do you think this is heading?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
we could start with
AI.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you start? Why don't you start with AI?
Well, we talked about AI with Scott because he interviewed this language model called Living Intelligence, and it was giving him the impression of being conscious, and it was
Right.
giving appropriate responses. But
Mm,
the more you probed it, and he was using language like, I'm also conscious, and we come from the same source, blah blah, this and that. But then, the more you probed it, the more you began to realize that it's not really conscious per se. It's emulating human consciousness and giving appropriate
mm.
responses because
Yeah.
it began to it ended up betraying that it's only simulating human language in a way. I mean,
Mm, mm,
if you watch that episode of the discussion, you realize, okay, it's not as convincing right now, but it gives really appropriate and intelligent
Yeah,
responses.
yeah, yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
I've been sort of quite ambivalent about some of this, and
yeah,
because the thing is, I'm a geek, and I remember as far back as being 10 or 11 trying to program my ZX Spectrum to have a conversation with me, and then realizing how freaking difficult it was, right?
yeah,
And I thought I want to make a chess computer, and even that I thought, oh my God, I can't get past the first move. There's like a
yeah,
thousand, million freaking combination, and
yeah,
I sort of got to the point where I thought, look, you probably can't do this. I don't. I don't think you can generate phenomenal consciousness in these systems. I don't know why I think that, but I just feel you can't. But what was the
Could it
point I
be
was
that
going to make?
you've been exposed to certain ideas like the no cloning theorem from Frederico Fajin, where you can't
Mm,
replicate quantum states, and
mm.
the fact that living beings, biological systems, they grow as opposed to being assembled. So there's this
They
fallacy.
self-assemble. We
Yeah,
self-assemble.
we
Yeah,
self-assemble. So there's
yeah.
a difference between assemblage and growth. And
Yes, yes.
robots are assembled, aren't they? And
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. And at the end of the day, they're only language models. As far as
Mm,
we have created AI, as far as AI goes today,
yeah.
um,
But then, I used to sort of feel quite optimistic and think that, we're okay here. Now, in terms of just putting aside the consciousness question for 1 second,
yeah,
I listened to something the other day that terrified me, and it was these language models were being given these scenarios um, where it looked like they might be shut down. Right. So the language model understood from the inputs that it was given that there was a good chance it was going to be shut down.
yeah,
And then it started plotting against the people that were planning to shut it down. And for example, there was one where this is all simulated, right?
yeah.
I mean, I hope that
I hope, yeah.
doing it
You
real,
hope it's
but
simulating human behavior in that situation, that the human
well,
would fight for survival and try to argue for its own existence.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly, right. And so, but is it just simulating that, or is it showing actual genuine self-interest?
yeah.
And so the scenario was something like this, right? It was there, you had this kind of large language model that could see the emails of this whole company, and then what they did, they fed it some emails that said, "Oh, we're thinking of shutting down the large language model," right?
Yeah,
And then what it did, it looked at, and this is all like a fake scenario, but the language model was doing its thing, and it found evidence that the person that had decided it was going to shut down was having an affair with someone and then it emailed that person direct and said, "I know you're having an affair. If you shut me down, I'll
put the
expose you."
stuff out. Blackmail.
What the fuck, And so, I mean, well, we've certainly created them in our own image, haven't we? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
there's some kind of black comedy there.
There really
The
is, isn't there?
film.
It's
Yeah,
crazy stuff. I couldn't believe I was hearing it myself. This was on
yeah,
Kurt John Mangles. This was on Theories of Everything.
yeah.
And because I used to be, I was like,
So it's not
I
just
don't, I still
please
don't
don't
think
kill
that
me.
says it's conscious.
It's
That doesn't mean it's conscious.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I hope. But
yeah,
I mean, because I mean, I go back to Kastrup's analogy where he said, look, you can replicate anything that's going on in a circuit board with
yeah,
water pipes and levers and chutes and things like that, and you can do logic, you could do NAND gates, you can do OR gates and things like that. You can do logic with these water pipes, right? And I quite like this, and he says it doesn't matter how many water pipes you add, that it's not going to get conscious, is it?
yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's just still a bunch of water pipes. I mean,
Yeah,
there may be this panpsychist kind of like basic primordial consciousness woven into those materials that you're using, those materials in inverted commas.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that assembly of water pipes has an opinion on, I don't know,
That's
Scottish
right.
politics or something.
Yeah, yeah,
But this is where Mike Levin is now pushing into this kind of, he's stretching that, I think. He's
yeah.
saying, no, we've got to be open-minded. And
Absolutely.
it's entirely, and he's almost seems like an ultra idealist in some sense. He's saying, no, everything is mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes I feel like Kastrup even holds back. I hold back.
yeah, yeah,
And I forget that I
yeah,
mean, I think, oh, well, there must be some kind of inert stuff out there that
yeah,
we're moving around. But no, nothing is inert.
yeah. You're either gonna. I mean, to me, physicalism is out of the question.
Ah, it's in
You're
the
either
bin.
going to be
It's
an
in the bin.
analyst or yeah, or a panpsychist, or you're going to say, oh, it's all mind, it's idealism.
Yeah.
Idealism is true, and everything that we see is a kind of dream. It's kind of like dreamed objects, and not every dreamed object represents a conscious agent.
Mm,
It could just be like a an icon on the desktop of a conscious agent,
mm.
and several conscious agents can share the same icon. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. do you tend to think so? I mean, just take your present situation now, right? You're surrounded by all these colors and shapes and forms. Do you think they all have agency of some sort, or what are they?
Hmm. I
You know,
would say
I mean,
um, there is
I
a
mean, my
kind of
yeah, sorry,
there is a kind of programmed agency to do with my laptop, the laptop I'm using
yeah,
right now.
yeah, yeah,
But I don't think it represents a conscious viewpoint. I think it's just a
mm,
dreamed object,
yeah,
akin to a dreamed object.
yeah.
It's a form within
There
my
is no,
field of awareness.
there is no my laptop.
Yeah, there is no my
You
laptop.
know, my laptop doesn't know it's a laptop, but
Yeah,
the stuff that's there that's manifesting as a laptop,
yeah.
that you know, that might have some agent. Well, Levin's saying everything has agential. Eh,
Mm.
you know. I mean,
But
it's funny because
to
I
put it
said
in a
I.
different, yeah, I tell
Okay.
you what, to put it in a different way, every object that surrounds me right now, including my body, is a bit like my mind stretching stretching out into the appearance of space. And if you move about this space, there's the experience of time. So everything's being stretched out, but it's all my mind. It's within my mind, but it stretches out. So there is no real space. It's kind of like what Peter Russell came up with. It sort of said like it's almost like our minds are stretched out into space time, but it's
Wow.
only an appearance. Yeah, he came up with something like that. That's one way of looking at it, really.
You
I mean,
one of
what do
these
you think?
days, one of these days, you're going to have to send me your reading list, right? Because but again, Peter Russell, that's not a known name for me, so that sounds interesting. Yeah.
It's just someone I came across. I think I found out about him through Stephen. Um, I think he even has his own podcast, but I think he's published some books and he has some kind of background and he talks about metaphysics and idealism and stuff like that. And meditation
Mm,
is massively into meditation. But he came up with he made this video where he was looking at observations made in science to do with physics, quantum physics, and the nature of light and time dilation. He went through all of this, and then somehow he married that with the notion that consciousness is fundamental, and it's all being stretched out. It's almost like a mind seeing from different perspectives and stretching itself out to the
mm,
appearance of the world that we see
mm,
around us, right?
mm,
And the
mm.
thing is, when I saw that, it actually reminded me of Douglas Harding. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was also a mystic who's been quoted by Sam Harris because Sam Harris had a
Mm,
disagreement with Daniel Dennett about the nature of consciousness.
mm.
Sam Harris
Yeah.
said, no, consciousness can't possibly be an illusion. And in his book, Waking Up, I don't know if you've ever read it. If you get the chance, I know he's got the app, but the book is actually a brilliant book from Sam
Mm.
Harris, and
Yeah.
he cites Douglas Harding, who in the 60s he talked about the headless experience,
Go
and
on.
as a mystic, he was also into meditation, and he said you can have a headless experience, and you can get into a state. In fact, it's not even a deep state; it's right on the surface. You can
Right.
realize that you can feel your head with your fingers, right? And if you
Hmm.
look down, the rest of
Yeah.
your body is included in your bubble of perception. But he
Hmm.
said something. If you look out into the world, you will notice that the whole world rests on your neck where a head should be. So it's this expansive space all the way to the horizon as far as the
Yeah.
eye can see.
Yeah.
So he said, where a head should be is the whole world. And
Mm.
right there, you get you get the
Yeah.
headless experience. And if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
experience the head, you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can say, that's my head. But
Mm.
it's only an
Kind
image,
of
it's
looking
only an
out.
appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's out there. And
Because,
if you want to feel a head, you can have the tactile
yeah.
sensation of
Do
a
you
head.
think that? I mean, I actually don't know any blind people, but I'd be curious to know whether they're still as located within the head. as sighted people. Um,
Right.
do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you could ask that you could do some crazy thought experiments and say, well, let's imagine we had eyes in our gut, right?
Yeah.
Actually, in some sense, I do feel the world from my gut as well. The
Yeah.
whole thing of the
Yeah.
gut feeling,
Yeah.
and
Go with your gut.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
And quite often, normally, those feelings, those illogical, irrational, non-reproducible feelings, are the most reliable ones we have.
Yeah. Here's a
You get
crazy
the
thought,
heat.
right? What if some of the characters in your dreams, who try to tell you things and give you information sometimes, even about, slow down, eat less bacon or something like that, you're worried about bacon. In waking life, you go about your business and you're thinking, oh, maybe I'm having too much bacon and it's dangerous, carcinogenic. And then you dream and you see a character saying to you, urging you, stop eating bacon. I wonder if they are, even if they come in the human form, if they
Mm.
are representations of what your gut is
Yeah,
telling you.
yeah,
It's almost like your gut
absolutely. Why
speaking to you.
not?
Yeah,
Why
yeah, why
not?
not?
Not why? I mean, absolutely, why not? Because first and foremost, here we can say with quite some confidence that mind is not located in the brain,
Yeah,
right? And we
exactly.
both of us could probably list three, four, five, probably areas of empirical science that supports that, right?
Yeah,
So mind isn't, I mean, I love Levin's example of the metamorphosing caterpillars.
yeah,
They
yeah,
literally turn to mush, right?
yeah,
So, their brain is gone and then it's rebuilt again in their butterfly form.
yeah. That's a mystery
And
in
yet, and
itself.
yet, and yet they remember some of the
Yeah,
mazes and some of the challenges and tactics and so on from
yeah,
before, conditioning
yeah,
response. And so, mind isn't in the brain, right?
yeah, yeah.
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I find
Um,
butterflies really mysterious. They go through those stages, the pupa,
mm.
the chrysalis, and and where is all that information stored? How do they come together and become a different form? And it's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the materialists would have us believe that it's a machine, right? It's a machine and that it has hardware, which is the proteins and so on, and the software is the DNA.
yeah,
Right? It duplicates itself like the Borg or something, like some sort of robot hive,
yeah,
but they deny it any
yeah. They liquefy in the chrysalis, don't they? In the pupa
they
or
turn
something.
to mush. They turn to
They
mush. All of
turn
their
to mush.
yeah,
So the
they're in
materialist would have to say somehow the information is retained within that liquid, and then it gives instructions.
they're
Yeah,
basically fucked. Arlindo, I'm sorry to say it, but crudely, but they're basically fucked already. The moment that brain's they're fucked already. The moment that brain's turned to mush, their whole worldview
yeah,
dissolves. But and,
yeah,
and this is why it amazes me that sort of people like Mike Levin are still kind of in some way still seen on the fringes. I mean,
yeah,
it, I mean, and it's. I got the impression that I think even some of his sponsors in the commercial realm are saying, no, you go ahead and you talk about the metaphysical stuff
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
what's behind your advances.
yeah.
That's why you're different. That's why but he's such a humble figure, but
I
he
predict a Nobel Prize. It
Oh my
deserves a
God. I
Nobel Prize.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, totally and utterly. But the,
yeah,
but the, but the key thing is that he's abandoned those constrained materialistic boxes that we've been living in for, some time. And
yeah,
it's mad to think that I know intelligent people that are still
yeah,
clinging to almost like a Newtonian
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
kind of what, it's
I really admire him. Is the best kind of scientist, where he goes where others fear to tread for fear
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
reputation. Yeah, yeah,
and he speaks openly about his philosophy. He's cautious,
yeah,
but I don't think his caution is to do with reputation. His caution is just to do with intellectual integrity,
yeah.
because
Absolutely.
you and I mean, this is something I wanted to talk to you about. We've only got a few minutes left. I've got to go soon,
Sure,
but I
fire
wanted
away.
to talk about the kind of the characteristics, the differing, and between sort of materialists and idealists. And I think there's something romantic maybe about us, something a bit more and I can't put my finger on it, by
Yeah.
definition, right? The
It's like
Tao
the
that can be.
relationship between Batman and the Joker.
Oh,
And
right. Let's hear. Let's hear.
yeah, and I think idealism is taunting Batman, is taunting the materialist. Idealism is saying, hit me, I want you to hit me. And Batman chickens
Yeah.
out, and he swerves away from the
I
Joker.
think because I think in a way, it takes a bit of courage in a way, right?
Yeah,
Because especially when you've got a backdrop, you and I were raised. I know I'm longer in the tooth and stuff, but we it's raised in a similar intellectual tradition. I can see
yeah,
that, and I'm down. I was so down with the Dawkins and the Hawkins and all these
so was
people,
I.
and it was like in a way that was my mysticism. That was my
Yeah,
because that was away
I still
from the
have
kind
some
of
books by Dawkins to read, and
yeah,
I when I read the not the Fabric of Reality, what was that book? The Blind Watchmaker. I
I
still
love
think,
that book. That
yeah,
was
I
life
still think
changing
it's a
for me.
beautiful book. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, it touched so many points for me because he was doing it on like a BBC Micro as well. He was building these images
yeah,
with the software and stuff.
that's
Because I used to
right.
program those and spectrums, and I tried doing some of the things he was doing with the
Yeah,
user-defined graphics, and
wow.
I didn't succeed, but
Yeah. But it's
so
so interesting, isn't it? The
it is.
experiment itself and how they evolve those, the forms, the shapes of the
Yeah,
computer
yeah.
programs. It's really
Yeah,
great.
and
It really,
I
really is.
mentioned to Mike Levin the other night as well as this guy called Steve Grand. He wrote a computer game called Creatures, and it was entirely to do with that evolutionary process. And they would randomly mutate, and certain properties were favored by the
Yeah,
environment, and you could modify your own creatures. It was
yeah,
fantastic. And he wrote a book called Life and How to Make It. And I mean, I
yeah.
think I mean, I don't want to quote him, but I think he's probably a materialist.
Right.
He was like he was going on about emergent forms and a
Yeah,
bit like Mike Levin was saying, it's like, we can have a big book of surprises and say, oh, it's just emergent facts. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
2 minutes.
Almost
Um,
done.
but
I
yeah,
mean, we can say that there is a kind of emergentism that can be reasonably preserved in terms of how uh, things morph into more complexity, and you can give
mm,
rules to these programs, just simple rules, and watch how it develops over time, and then it begins to form complexity
mm,
out of
yeah,
simplicity. And it sounds so feasible and plausible. And you can say,
mm,
oh, maybe something like that is what's really happening with nature, and it gives
yeah,
rise to everything.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then you run the risk of saying emergentism applies to absolutely everything,
Mm.
including minds and consciousness
It's
and
just a
everything else.
weak. It's an excuse. It's like, oh, we can't explain it. We'll call it emergentism.
Yeah,
Anyway, dude, I'm gonna have to go. I'm
no
gonna have to.
problem. Thank you so much for coming on the show,
This has been
and yeah,
fantastic.
and feel free to share. And I already have my own kind of little intro, so we're not going to run into copyright issues with YouTube. you know, but
It's been
it's
an
been
absolute
fantastic.
pleasure. You're one of the freshest and most open-minded characters out there at the moment. I love listening to your stuff. I love talking to you. We must do it again. Thanks,
Yeah.
dude. Speak soon.
I never used to be as open-minded, but yeah, I've learned I've learned over the years. But thank you very much, and I love your show, and I recommend it to everyone.
Cheers,
Cheltenham UK
buddy.
Philosophers. Yep.
Experiential realism. Speak soon, brother.
Yep. Take care. See you
Take care,
soon. Yep.
man. Bye.
Bye.